City, home to the 260's dedicated high school athletes and fans. Each victory and celebration captured by our cameras. Treasure the highlights from the Summit Athletic Conference this season, or complete games live or on demand. After all, nobody's more proud to call Fort Wayne home than SummitCitySports.com. Thank you for watching Summit City Sports. To help broaden our coverage, we're asking you to become a monthly sponsor to our Patreon account. We produce weekly highlights and live video broadcasts. When the Homestead girls golf team won its first state title in program history, we were there. When Fort Wayne brought back 3 state titles in cross country, we were there. We believe in sharing positive stories and setting the standard for how high school sports should be covered. Join us and donate today.
In 1952, my father, Jim Kelly, opened his first dealership. Thanks to loyal customers, dedicated employees, community support, and a bit of luck, his business grew. 70 years later, that dealership has become the Kelly Automotive Group, with 14 brands and 3 locations, including our new Fort Wayne Auto Mall. Thank you for 70 amazing years. It's been the ride of a lifetime. We hope you join us for the next 70.
And greetings, everybody. Welcome to Around the Fort episode. Jeff, help me.
33.
33.
Jose Canseco's
That was
number.
Jesus' age. Am I right? Yeah, it was when he died. It was Jesus was 33, and also Tony Dorsett, Larry Bird. So take
and
that.
Jose Canseco.
And was he really?
Yeah.
Oh man, he juiced. At any rate, my name's Casey Oldboy. I'm with Northeast Indiana Game Night. Welcome to Around the Fort, episode 33, week 10 of the high school football season 2023. I say that because we got 4 special guests tonight that we'll introduce here shortly on a 40-year anniversary type deal. That's why they're old. But before we do, I want to welcome in my buddy Jeff Mahoney, the other half of Around the Fort. Jeff, welcome to the cave again.
Thank you, Casey. Super excited for this weekend, obviously, with the playoffs kicking back up. Bluffton, we talked about how important that game was up in Lakeland, and they
took care of business.
Yeah, they came through big time. They do have Jenkins back. They do have Kamel Moore back, so they are a totally different team heading into the postseason. It's going to be neat to see if they can come out of their side of the sectional, meet up with Lures in a potential rematch for the regional. Mm-hmm. But it's just nice to see them at full steam. You really want to see all these teams kind of peaking at this point in the season, and that's what's going to be interesting about this Friday, and most notably East Noble at New Haven, where is Mylan Graham going to be back?
100%, right.
Can New Haven slow down the three-headed monster, the rushing attack of Dylan Crail and Michael Mosier and Tyson Reinbold? So, going to be Wayne at Dwenger.
Great matchup.
Did not play in the regular season this year, so that's going to be another fun one. But you got to love this time of year. No
doubt about it. And speaking of Bishop Dwenger, our special guests tonight here in the cave are none other than 4 representatives from the 1983 Bishop Dwenger State Championship team. I'm going to go one by one real quick and introduce them. To my immediate left, center and inside linebacker on that team, Kevin Burns. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Swami. We are the champions.
That's all right. Are you going to sing a little Queen for us tonight?
Afterwards, we might.
Okay, a cappella. Next to him, Big Bubba, Terry Winklejohn, right tackle. Terry, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
To his left, Brian Canary, guard, inside linebacker from that 83 team. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Swami. Happy to be here.
And then to your left, Brian, is the tight end, the man himself who caught the game-winning 2-point conversion, tight end Mark Eifert. Mark, welcome to Around the Fort.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Some storied names here, some guys that have thick ties to the program. Guys, let's just jump right into it. let's not beat around the bush. Let's talk about the state championship game against Roncalli. You guys were down 21-7, I believe, early in the fourth quarter. Somehow, miraculously, found a way to win that game. It was at Warren Central High School. I was down there as an impressionable 8th grader, and I thought, man, it's just not going to happen. 21-7 didn't feel very good, and you guys stormed back, won the game 22-21. Kevin, I'll start with you. Just real quick, memories from that night.
Yeah, I think Coach Johns made a great adjustment. I know Brian might talk about the adjustment on defense, but on offense, it was our passing attack that really set us aside against Roncalli. Chris Griffith, our quarterback, made some unbelievable plays, and Brian Ray was unbelievable as a receiver. And I think it was 4th and 10. And we ran a little tailback out of the backfield down the middle, down the seam, and we hit it. Big play there. Mm-hmm. And I love this. My dad always talks about this, how we had the old hang him out to dry draw play, which made it 21-14. So those are a couple of the memories that I remember from
Yeah, for sure. That pass play was to Chris Reitzik, right, who ended up playing tailback at Indiana University. He was kind of the marquee name, if you will, on this team.
Nothing like having a tailback with the name of Reitzig. We used to call him the Panzer. And then the fullback was Jim Taylor. And if anybody's a Packer fan, they all know the fullback Jim Taylor. So
no
pretty
doubt.
good backfield names there.
Yeah, definitely. And then, Terry, I'll let you comment on the same thing. Just memories from that night, a couple of the things that stick out for you.
No, I think one thing, it was a very warm night. It was on Saturday. Cherubusco and Lures had played on Friday night. Both put up great fights, but they came up short. And then, so we went in there on Saturday. Did not play at Carmel. We played at Warren Central. Just obviously a very exciting environment. And I think, like Kevin said, the thing that stuck out, we ran a lot. We were often ahead during the games. And a few years ago, I was reading an article about the game, which I had not read for a long time. And honestly, Chris Griffith's passing performance that night was, when I read it, I almost couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he put together some numbers
really
that night.
Really made the difference in the game. And then remember when Roncalli got behind after the 2-point conversion, they had to pass, and that didn't work out real well for them. I don't know who intercepted that pass, but
Newport?
DeMarc Newport, maybe?
Newport, I think,
yeah, but they
is he 24?
No, I think it was Ray.
I think Ray.
of course it was Ray.
Is Ray golfing right now in the rain? I mean, he was supposed to be
he
here.
did everything.
Ray
He
was
did everything.
probably golfing or working on a
Golfing
swing.
in the rain. Brian Ray, you can come here in 10 years. Brian, what are your memories?
Well, I got to talk just grip. It was like an ace in the hole. If you're playing like 7-card stud, high spade splits half the pot. Grip was like the high spade. Like people didn't know. It's like a secret.
Yeah.
But we knew, but when we had to do it, he just delivered like, yeah, I've been doing this all year. But we didn't do it in games because our
Didn't
running
have
attack
to.
was so powerful. But then I got to talk about, like, I felt like on defense, we were getting a run on in that game more than we were used to. And, it was frustrating. But then Tone switched us to a 6-2 defense.
Oh, the old 6-2.
And when we did that, I felt like it just completely shut down the run. And then we were able to blitz and do some things. They couldn't pick us up. And I remember, behind the line tackles and just completely disrupted them. And I think that turned the tide in terms of like emotions and like they're like, what? Why am I being tackled 3 yards behind? Well,
I totally agree.
And we shut it down. So that's my memory.
They were behind the chains a lot, especially I'd say middle second quarter on. Once they got that 2-touchdown lead, and I watched some of the game today, which is really hard to believe that this is the best thing that's out here.
Yeah.
I mean, I joked earlier, I think you guys started the season in leather helmets because the footage is just horrific. We need to find something better. But, Mark, what are your memories? I mean, when you go back to that night, not selfishly, but do you go right back to that game-winning 2-point conversion catch?
Yeah, I'd rather not talk about that. What I remember most is what they said. It was a nice warm night because the week before we were in South Bend, it was freezing cold.
14-0 against St. Joe.
Yeah, 14-0 up there. But, it was 20 degrees and snowing, and we got down to Indy, to Warren Central, and it was probably 60 degrees that night. It was a beautiful night. But, they really did manhandle us in the first half, and we'd never really been behind. Maybe at Lures we were behind.
That was a back-and-forth game, though, wasn't it? The Lures game?
Yeah, we were up 10-0, then we were down 21-10.
Okay.
And that I remember that was the first sick feeling I got in my stomach was at Lures, but I really wasn't as worried because I thought we'll come back on lures.
We've done this.
But the way I saw Roncalli manhandle us, we were in trouble. And, our motto was we believe our senior year. And with 7:37 to go in the fourth quarter, we're down 21-7. And it happened.
It was a remarkable finish. My memories are kind of similar, like, oh my gosh, came all the way down here. We're so close, and it's just maybe not going to happen because it didn't feel like it. And watching some of the footage today, I mean, you guys could not run the ball that way you had the whole year. And there were just a few of those signature plays, Kevin, that you mentioned, and Griff had just had a remarkable game. This was a kid that was unheralded, that didn't probably get the credit he deserved, and when the backs were against the wall, you had to throw the ball to find a way to win that game. That fourth down play for sure to Reitzig.
When I say we believed in our offense and defense the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that the defense stepped up at the end, and so did the offense.
Mm-hmm.
They both stepped up when we really needed it, and
good point.
See what happened.
It's interesting, Casey. Chris Griffith. He didn't start. In today's world, can you believe a quarterback had to wait their turn to start? Like, that just doesn't happen anymore.
He didn't transfer.
He waited his turn, and I can remember that he took a trip overseas, and we're like, oh my gosh, is he working out? Like, he was kind of the unknown on that team because a bunch of us had played as juniors, a bunch of us. And so we had a good junior class coming up, and he was kind of the unknown, and, man, he had just an unbelievable season.
Well, talk
we
a
were
little
worried
bit
about him. He was a champion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he came through in the clutch. But talk about it. You guys were all in the huddle after that score with about 2 minutes left in the game that made it 21-20. And you guys sat upstairs. Coach Johns came out to you guys in the huddle. That's back old days, right?
Yeah.
Where we make coaches walk. So the players run out of the sideline. Mm-hmm. Coach came out and had a conversation with you guys about the decision to go for two. Somebody talk about that.
Well, he was very calm, is the way I remember it. And remember how they always wanted us to make our huddle pretty, and we never really got that down. We just kind of bunched up. Right. And I just remember Coach Johns just very calmly saying, what do you guys want to do?
He phrased it like a question.
Yeah.
Maybe thinking he had it in his head, but
I think he already knew what he was going to do.
But honestly,
you guys were unanimous? Let's go.
Enthusiastically said yes, just for the simple reason that I was exhausted. I mean, we battled so hard, and they were so strong.
And
that was not normal for us. We weren't exhausted.
Usually you were out by this time in the fourth quarter.
Right.
A lot of games.
Just get it over with. I'm tired.
See,
to be honest,
I think he really wanted to know what we wanted to do. These guys think he had his mind made up.
Not sure.
I'm not sure he did.
You think he was?
I mean, he was such a genuine guy,
testing the waters,
and I think he trusted us and what we had been through, preparing for the season and going through the entire season. I think he really wanted to know what we wanted to do.
John Allgaier was your kicker, correct?
Yep.
To this point, was 2 for 2. Were either of those close to being blocked or missed? Do you guys recall?
No, he was automatic.
He was Mr. Automatic.
I mean, wasn't he like
he
was like
65 of 67 on the year or something obnoxious?
Another great player.
So I mean, conventional wisdom, typically, you're kicking in that situation and thinking, okay, we go to overtime. It was kind of a ballsy call. Mark, you told me upstairs that there was a penalty that got you guys half closer to the goal line, and I'm shocked. And he called the exact same play. What was it?
Yeah, we always practice the 2-point conversion going on 2. Fred Tone always said, "Hey, let's try to draw them off sides. If we can draw them off sides, we can probably run the ball."
And it worked.
Take it to the 1.5 yard line if we get a penalty on them. So we always did that, and sure enough, we drew them off sides. I ran my pattern. It was a sprint out right.
I think that was our only pass play.
Yeah. it was
and the up. Sprint out and up.
Sprint out right.
But it was a quick sprint out right, and I ran my pattern, and the officials blew their whistle. I was already out in my pattern, and we came back to the huddle, and he didn't change the play.
So did he send it in with another player? Or how was that called? Do you recall? How did did you guys do it back then with a player rotation?
Someone else back
I would guess he called it, but normally we ran the plays in with the guards.
That's old school.
Yeah,
guards. That's what I play too. Yeah, guards
or
receivers.
On the left side, we had 2 guards.
So
Larry Wygan and Joe Rogan.
So I got to ask you: were you more open on the first one than you were the second one? Because I know the second one was contested, correct?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the replays, and I didn't get far enough out into the pattern to know if I would have been open in the first one, but the second one I was not that open.
Okay.
And Griff threw it. It hit me basically right in the numbers, and the defender was coming from my right,
closing
and tried to knock it down and just missed it.
Wow.
I mean, by inches.
Yeah, it truly is a game of inches. You think of that play, you think of the fourth down play. If that doesn't happen, probably another 3 or 4 throughout the course of the game, and woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? So I got to ask the question. This is the age-old question that Dwenger fans always want to talk about. The true diehards. What's the best team in Dwenger history? If you start with the 5 state championship teams, let's just start there. Although that 78 runner-up team that lost to Carmel 35-18 was really, really good.
Yeah.
If you start with the 5 state championship teams, a lot of people, and Coach Johns even said this, Jeff, you probably remember, he leans towards the 83 team because you were the first. Is that the bar, or was it the results, the scores, how you did it? What do you think, Kevin? Take that.
Yeah, and I got a cousin that was on the 90-91 team.
Yeah.
I mean, those were some
phenomenal
talented teams. I will say this. I don't know if we were the most talented, right? But we were the best team. And we were the first. And I always say that to everybody. We were, when you think about how many seniors we had starting, I think of the 22,
like 18 or 19
we had 19
spots?
total. We had guards that switched in and out. So Larry Weigand was a sophomore at that time. Sam Tellerico was a sophomore. And then Adam Taylor was the only junior that started. So that's my thought, is that we may not have been the most talented, but we were the best team.
Okay. Who else wants to touch that?
I think we had a core group of people that were, a lot of solid above average, if you want to say that. I mean, every team has their bright spots, but we just had not many weaknesses. That's my impression. Just
solid across
the board. And then I'll bring up the shutouts too. Our defense,
Yes.
we had on the record, we had, what was it? We had
8
on the record book, but
that's a lot.
In reality, players know we actually had
easy.
we had 11.
No, he's right on it, Keith.
We had
14
11.
was there 14
we had 11,
games?
11 shutouts against our first team. Now, sometimes we put second team in, and they would score. So really, you can count the 8, but we really had 11. So that's pretty solid against the 14? Was it 14 games?
14.
Yeah, it's pretty decent. It was just
But if you
Lures, Belmont, and Ron Kelly scored on us, and that was it.
So, but the 90 team was the devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Man, what they did to New Pal.
Yep.
56-14 or something. I mean, they just throttled them in the state championship game.
Yeah.
But did
and
they
they
go
were
undefeated?
No, they did. Didn't they? A
90
year later, they
90
lost.
They lost in 91.
They lost, I think, to Wayne.
So that,
perhaps, to start
that's the one
season.
thing. You have the 5 state champions, but then you only have 2 undefeated.
2 undefeateds, right.
And my other comment would be, when we were sophomores, that 81 team, they were special. Mm-hmm. And we practice against those seniors every day.
And battled them.
And battled them.
That's a great point.
And took our lumps. And I really think that helped us. And then, like we said earlier, a lot of us played as juniors. Mm-hmm. That helped us.
Yeah.
So it was building. Mm-hmm. With that 81 team.
Dan Alter, Matt Pruden, going against them every day.
Michael Brink.
You think that was
Love
that
Dan
was fun?
Alter.
TJ McLaughlin.
Yeah.
TJ
Yeah,
McLaughlin.
TJ.
Dave Canary
I had
was a
a
junior
was a year
on that team. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we went up against them, and then we're like, okay,
Yeah,
that was tough.
Well, and talk about that. So in 1981, your first loss is to Snyder, 17-6. Was the rivalry as big as what we make it now? I mean, I played at Dwenger. Senior year was 96, and growing up right next to Snyder, going to St. Charles, you just knew half the team anyways. But even back then, in the early 80s, was the rivalry the marquee rival in the SAC, or was Southside, Northside still lingering on, things like that?
I'd say Snyder was still building at that point. I mean, that was a really good team, that 81 Snyder team. And
We always had the Lure-Dwenger rivalry.
I felt it was more Lures-Dwenger.
But I
was a
always
bigger
felt
game.
Snyder. I always felt that Snyder-Dwenger rivalry was all there because they were always
But then
good, and we were good. And I thought it was all right.
Well, then they started beating us.
Yeah, yeah.
So then by senior
Rod
year,
Woodson, 2 years in a
senior
row.
year, we'd lost to him 2 years in a row.
Yeah, Rod was pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of him or
Hall
not.
of Famer. Yeah,
He didn't
Folks, for those of you who are just tuning in now, Rod Woodson was actually a pretty good football player.
he didn't get much up the middle though. Let's be honest. But when he got
All the
outside, he was
perimeter.
very
When
dangerous.
he got outside,
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
He made your brother look like he was in quicksand.
He was fast. Yeah, and 4 years at IU and Purdue too, but we don't want to go there.
Oh, don't go down that road.
Yeah.
Track star. Well, folks, if you're just now tuning in to Around the Fort, we have 4 legendary Saints from the 1983 state championship team: Kevin Burns, Terry Winklejohn, Brian Canary, Mark Eifert. Mark doesn't want to talk about that 2-point play. I'm going to put you on the spot. What's going through your guys' mind as that ball? Is that ball in the air forever? I mean, are you watching it and freezing,
No,
thinking?
I mean, I did. I mean, I think Terry, Brian, and I probably got our heads somewhere in somebody's chest.
Right.
I did not know what happened until I saw Mark jumping up and down.
Okay. And the crowd
And
reacting
the crowd
on your
reacted.
side.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a good lineman. You're toiling in anonymity, and then all of a sudden you hear the crowd cheer, and you look up, and he's jumping like perfect.
Right.
Like that's what you want. That's what you want.
Yeah.
I just want to make
That's
sure I had the snap down. Nothing was wrong with the snap. Casey was
Were you in
perfect.
shotgun?
It's perfect.
Was it a shotgun back then? Pistol formation? Well, let's talk a little bit, maybe real quick, about some of the other signature wins that season. I mean, because you can't make the claim, the undefeated claim, if you don't beat Lures. That was the tight game, like you said, 21-10, right?
So
Lures
we were
was
up. I mean, it was interesting. Lures played Woodland on Friday night. They were favored and they lost. So it felt like Lures maybe was looking ahead. We played Harding on Saturday night, and won pretty handily. But it was Saturday night.
Yeah.
And then turned around and played on Wednesday again.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing. We'll have to tell our viewers why that happened. But go ahead, Terry.
But so we went up. And we were expected to win. We had been rolling. Mm-hmm. So we went up 10-0 at halftime. And I remember we went in the gym at Lures. And they had the tarp on the floor. We went in, and Coach Geargash, rest his soul. You remember he was pounding on the blackboard. I need some leg drive. He
sensed it.
He was special.
Yeah,
He was
He
special.
sensed it.
they had a blackboard. And we went out in the second half, and Dave Slater, who was, I think, one of the best all-around players to play,
Yeah.
Fast, just torched us for 3 touchdowns like that.
I just remember him
we're down
down the
21.
sideline.
We're down 21-10. Mm-hmm. Probably early fourth quarter, and then we just started marching back, and and probably prepped us for Roncalli.
Because you had that adversity.
Yeah.
29-21 was the final,
Yep,
I believe. So it was a solid win considering where you came from.
And they had a lot of good players too.
I probably won't talk about this in the Lures game, but we found a weakness in one of their defensive ends, and Ife was just crushing him. And so we were running sweeps, and then Griffith hit a couple passes. So we found a weakness there in the second half.
That you attacked.
It was nice too to know coming from behind psychologically, like you mentioned, and we also went to the pass a lot in that game, didn't we? And that was a precursor, I think, to Roncalli.
For sure.
And then
hey,
not
we
to
can
make
do this.
excuses,
We can
but-
win another way.
Right.
That Saturday to Wednesday game, we didn't have time to practice for
Yeah,
Lures
it was
much, and I
tough.
think Fred even said like, Lures has to run the trap all year. We're not going to practice that or whatever. Well, they came out in the second half. They trapped us. They started trapping us. And
Oh, they trapped you all right.
and they didn't. And that's when they got quick scores. Well, we figured it out eventually, and,
Yeah.
and were able to shut it
Made
down.
some
But that was a
corrections.
tough game.
Yep.
Yeah, I asked Mike Geely one time. Mike played center at Lures. I'm like, you guys didn't really prepare for Woodland, did you, that year? He's like, no, we didn't.
Looked right past
They
them.
looked right past Woodland. They got beat. But anyway, they were a
Explain-
good team as well.
Terry, explain the Wednesday night thing for folks that don't remember the cluster and how that went into the playoffs.
So before that, there were 3 classes, and you had to be invited into the playoffs. So in one of the big frustrations was in 1979, Northside was undefeated in Fort Wayne and didn't make the playoffs.
That's a
And then in
crime.
1980, Lures was undefeated in Fort Wayne and did not even make the playoffs. So there was a lot of so they came up with the cluster system. You were broken down sort of location with 4 other teams
in your enrollment.
in your area. So Belmont, I know it was Belmont. I think it was Wayne and Southside or Wayne
New
and
Haven?
Harding. No, New Haven was sectional game.
Okay.
And then you played those 4 teams or those 3 teams. And whoever had the best record got to go to the playoffs.
You played them during the regular season?
Yeah, regular season.
Okay.
So we played all the Fort Wayne teams plus Belmont. And the reason we played on Wednesday was if the clusters had if two teams were 2-2 on Friday or Saturday, they had a cluster buster where the two teams would meet. And it was the overtime rules.
Wow.
1st and 10 from the 10.
Oh, wow.
And that was the game.
That's how you would make.
That's how you
the
decided
tournament.
who went to the playoffs.
Okay.
So we played on Wednesday, cluster busters on Friday or Saturday, and then a week later sectional started. So you start at sectional where we played New Haven. That didn't work out real well for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we think we've got drama and controversy this year with the
Holy
new, talk about a cluster. We got a cluster this year, I think, with the
busters.
new SAC scheduling and
Yeah.
everything. I guess it's been around forever. Truly was a cluster.
Yeah, and it only lasted 2 years, so it didn't work real well. And then they went to everybody makes the playoffs.
Okay.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah. Mark.
Casey, when you asked about signature wins, the two that come to my mind are, back then there was 4 classes, and we were 3A, and Northrop Snyder were 4A.
Mm-hmm.
And we Northrop was undefeated. I think they're ranked top 3 or 4 in the state, 4A. So it was a big game. We were both undefeated, and I think we ended up winning 42-6
7 or something.
We
Yeah.
had them shut out 42-0. So here's a team in the top 5 in the 4A, and very anticipated game, and we took
Blew the
care
doors
of
off of
business.
them. Yeah, I
and the
remember
other
that
one is obviously when you can beat Snyder.
shut them out, too.
Yeah. 20 to
20-0.
nothing. You shut out Snyder.
That was big.
I mean,
And Northside was really good back then, too.
I want to talk about
Didn't
that
you
one, 'cause
open
wasn't
with
that the first?
Northside?
I think we did.
Yeah.
And what I remember about
Woodfin.
that, inside, you might remember, downtown, the kids would talk, and the Northside players were
Fryman Square.
They come and talk, and because we were all anticipating this first big game, and they were pretty psyched up. They had Johnny Sewell, God rest his soul. He was a junior as a running back, fullback, and a big, strong kid. And they said, "Hey, Johnny Sewell, 3." They said, "This is what they said." They said 3 yards of carry. They said that's a first down +2. And we're like, "Whoa!"
They dropped
okay.
a +2 on you.
Yeah, I mean,
Tenure,
that-
there's
We
12
were
yards
talking
of carry.
about that in the locker room
Yeah.
during the summer
Yeah.
workouts.
I mean,
That was at Chambers
gave
Field,
us-
I
gave
believe,
us-
wasn't it?
They gave us
Was,
fodder.
yeah.
I remember that.
They gave us like a little bit of fodder to get, but he was good, and they were good. But we just we had that team, we had that solid across. They had key good players, but
They were young.
just solid.
And they were ranked
young.
real high, too, I believe. They had a lot of good talent.
And I think it was like
Yep.
what was it, 41-0 or something?
41-0.
We did
Was
it solid.
Dale
We shut
Dorfler,
them down.
one
We
of
shut
his
them down.
early teams, I
Yeah,
believe, wasn't he?
real
Coach?
hot night in the
I think
90s.
Brian Ray got kicked out that game.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
I just
Okay,
had
I
an
don't
argument
remember
about
that.
which quarter.
Did he
it
have a
was.
golf game?
Yes.
What the hell, Brian, weren't you here, buddy?
First quarter.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was one of the key games. Right out of the gate, we set the tone.
You mentioned Johnny Sewell, God rest his soul. You guys had a couple teammates that have since passed on.
Yeah.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about those two gentlemen. Let's start with Kevin Cagnett, two-way lineman. Who wants to start with this?
That's you two.
Yeah, I think Kevin.
Is he a tackle opposite
he
you?
Was the left tackle,
Okay.
and then what I would do, I played a lot of scout team even as a senior because I enjoyed it, and I always said, and then I would line up against him, and he was the best defensive tackle I faced all year. But just a great guy, kind of a gentle soul, but really, really good athlete.
Yeah.
Good friend, and on that team went both ways. Was a state qualifier shot putter, and it's just hard when it's hard. And then I know when we went to the funeral home, his older brother Chris said, "Are you guys gonna start singing na 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 na?" From Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
But it was a hard day, and his son played at Dwenger, and we got to watch him play. But we miss Kevin.
Yeah,
He
for
was
sure.
solid guy. Just like
Yeah.
you think about your teammates, you just never worried about Kevin. You just knew he was going to
Yeah.
get the job done offensively, defensively. And he's a great athlete and strong, and you just
Always produced.
He didn't always produce. Just
Yep.
a producer.
Yeah.
But being a lineman again, toiling in anonymity,
Right.
not all statistics, but you just knew he was a great player.
Yeah.
I remember in grade school, hell of a shooter.
Yeah,
He's a great basketball
Yeah,
player.
great
Really
athlete.
good basketball player. His
Yeah.
dad was a coach in St. Rose, Monroeville, I
Yep.
believe. And he could just fill it up basketball-wise. He didn't finish at Dwenger playing basketball, but he was really a good basketball player, too.
He was
State
tall.
qualifier shot put, I think.
And like you said, a really good athlete.
Yeah.
Another teammate, Tim Isaacs?
Yeah, Tim Isaacs.
Yeah. When did
He was
Tim
a
pass
long
away?
line of Isaacs that played Dwenger football. In fact, his brother Tom was the tailback on the 78
78 state team.
team, right? He was the
Yeah.
tailback, and then He had a brother that was a year ahead of him that was a good player. But Tim was a defensive back. Played grade school with him, and he also was one that kind of waited his turn. Senior year came around, and he, I think, led the team maybe in interceptions. I know it was between him and Adam Taylor, but he had a phenomenal year as a senior. I'll never forget that piece because I was like, Tim, come on, but it's just his shot, and he did it.
He delivered.
Yep, he delivered.
How long has it been since those two guys have passed away?
I think Tim 5 years.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
and I'd say Kevin was closer to 10.
Closer
but
to
not quite
10.
probably.
Yeah, well, God rest their soul, both of them.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got an opportunity to talk about
Yeah,
them.
let's not forget Coach Tone and Coach Geargash.
Yes,
Yeah.
good
as
call.
well.
Yep. And was Coach Ray?
Coach
Did he
Ray,
coach
yeah, he
them
was.
too?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't coach us.
Freshman
he
coach.
taught us government, but he coached the freshmen.
Okay.
After,
Right.
well, Coach Kester moved up with us.
Yeah.
For the playoffs?
No,
Or for that
no,
season?
No, for that
I think-
season.
Okay.
Well, did he move up with
Okay.
us?
Casey, it's hard to remember all 7 coaches when we were there.
No
now,
doubt.
Now there's like 26 coaches on the sidelines.
But
It's hard to remember all
A
7.
couple of them have passed on for sure, and certainly
Mr. Tallarico.
men that meant a lot to us in many, many ways. Let's talk a little bit about some of the family ties. I mean, all you guys, we got 3 of you here who have had sons that played on state championship teams. That's pretty cool. You've got relatives, nephews that have played on state championship teams. Why don't we just go around the room real quick and tell our viewers about some of the family connections?
Yeah, so I've got a couple cousins, Ben and Mark Roussel, that were part of the 91 teams that have rings. Mark and I are both uncles to Griffin Eifert, who just stole your thunder a little bit there, but you can talk about, he has a ring. And then my son, which was probably one of the best feelings you can have, and got to play with Peter, who was Terry's son, but he has a ring as well, and that was a
2015?
magical season, at least for our family. And Colin didn't start at all on defense, and ended up leading or being part of a sack team there on the defensive line for that team.
I remember that cover.
Yeah, he was on the cover.
Yeah.
So great memories, and love it.
Very special. Just folks, so you know, Kevin actually does the color commentary for Bishop Dwenger broadcasts and does a really fine job with that. Every once in a while he cusses, and I have to poke him and say, Kevin, you can't cuss like that.
So does my wife. She reminds me of that.
Other than that, no, you do a great job with that, Kevin. Terry, what about you? Talk a little bit about...
Sure. So like Kevin said, my son Peter was a junior on the 2015 team.
Sledgehammer.
Yep. So playing linebacker and fullback. So obviously very exciting. And then I had 2 nephews on that team. So my sister Holly Brady, her son Nick was a senior on that team, and her son AJ was a sophomore. I've got a great picture.
That's cool.
In my home office of the boys in the end zone at Lucas Oil with the trophy.
Those are all kids I coached.
And then my stepson Conley Foreman was on the 2018 team. So when you said bring rings, I got to put my hands on my ring, but I had 2 other rings in my house that I was
Had a
able
little
to
bit more, a little more bold.
Yeah, so
Mine's puny.
Can you get a shot of these, Jeff? And
Mine's
we'll get to you,
real
Brian.
puny.
Yeah, we got them.
So
Did you
this
get
is-
'em?
Yeah, so this is Peter's. So it's very exciting, very amazing to have all that
Come full circle.
Yep.
Yeah, and Bishop Dwenger football, and every program can say this, but it's special. And when you're part of it, and you've got family ties and connections and neighbors and cousins and on and on and on, it spans generations, and it really is 60 years in, very, very special. Brian, why don't you talk a little bit about...
Quick connection. My son Colin was on the 2018 state championship team as a senior and was a long snapper, so it was really neat to be there and go to the game and just watch the whole thing come to fruition. And about the rings, too, Kevin's got the original ring. I think I lost my original ring. I thought I had lost it. When the neighbor, Greg Muncie, shout out, I said, hey, I want a new ring. Well, these are what the rings are nowadays.
School spirit.
Back in 2002, they were big. Ours were a little more trim line and
A little more
slim.
subdued. Yeah.
But so big, a little fashion change over the years. I had my cousins, again, Lure state championships. They were flashing these rings in front of me. They're like, oh, you got a red one? I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I had a blue one. And they just had these big rocks, and I'm like,
Now, wait a
I'm like,
second.
you know what? I go, I
Yeah.
gotta get my ring out. These people are just, antagonizing me. So
Throwing
anyway.
their bling out.
So I got the
so
bling.
that's the one Greg remade for you?
Yeah, he just said, hey, this is what they look like nowadays, and I
Does it say
remade
1983 on it?
Yeah, it's got everything I
Oh, I
wanted.
love it. He
got
totally
83.
went over you.
Oh, he sure did.
It's got 83, my number,
Classic
my name,
Brian
Michigan
move right
Dwenger
there.
State champion. Yeah, so
Brian paid
anyway,
for that with Bitcoin.
That's what the
For those of you who are wondering.
that's
Mark.
And Muncie accepted it.
That's even better.
that's the ring story.
Love it. That's a great story, Brian. Mark?
I don't have any boys that played football. They both played golf. They're smarter than me. Probably have good knees right now, which I don't. But anyway, I have a few nephews, the Fogler boys.
Yes.
Kevin Fogler played, I want to say, in 06, 07. I don't know the years for sure. Went on to play at Air Force and has served our country. Mm-hmm. He had a nice career at Air Force as a wide receiver.
Yep. I think he made
They make the
BD top 50, I believe,
50.
10 years ago.
Yeah, and he should have. And then Brian Fogler played with Kevin and I's nephew, Tyler.
Tyler Eifert.
Tyler Eifert,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Who you may have heard of.
He had a decent career as well, and certainly in these
Yeah.
parts as well
Second
known.
best tight end in the family, as I tell him.
Well, he's got one less ring.
Yeah.
We do know that.
I don't think he's won anything other than the Mackey Award.
Yeah. He was pretty darn good. This picture here we were talking earlier, that's the record-setting catch against Wake Forest where he
but in high
passed
school,
Ken
they
McAfee.
didn't go to him in the big games.
No.
They went to him. They didn't go to him in the big games. Why not?
Well, that's a good question. Two or three
Coaching
times.
issue.
Two or three times. Well, Cathedral's pretty good, and there's a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas.
I know.
Through the years. I mean, we all have some teams that we played on or covered or followed that were special to us that you think, man, you look at, Dwenger's got 5 state championships, but there was quite a drought there from
Quite a
91 to 2015.
Big drought.
And you just think, man, they were so close. I think it underscores it's not easy.
Right.
I mean, we talked earlier about the 2-point conversion being a whisker away from being tipped. The pass play to Reitzig, on the 4th and long situation. If some of those things don't line up, it doesn't work out. And so, again, I think it speaks to A, how difficult it is, and B, what a wonderful sport that we all love so much in high school football. Jeff, what are your thoughts here? You got some highlights up there? Look at that footage. It cracks me up.
It's ancient.
Oh, man. Looks like 16 millimeter.
Oh, there's number 83. I don't know who it is.
I want that jersey for the cave. So number 83, if you're still out there
Yeah.
floating around and that's sitting in your attic somewhere, that needs to be down here in the
and
Hall
that
of Fame.
Number 66 was Matt Steger, who served
Matt Steger.
served our country for a lot of years in the Army.
I remember the Steger family.
And there was Dave Nolan, I think, was 22, wasn't he?
Yeah, tell that Dave Nolan story. That's funny as hell. That is classic. Go ahead, Kevin. Tell that.
I know, as much as I can remember, but Dave was really the glue on the back end for our defense. The guy was a phenomenal safety, and even in the first game, he scored our first touchdown with an interception of the year. He started it off with a pick six, but he was also how would you describe
Kind
him,
of an
Terry?
antagonist.
Yeah.
Cheap shot artist.
That's what they call it today. Back then it was an antagonist.
Right. So I just remember late in the season, and we're playing somebody who runs the option, and whoever the JV quarterback was just not giving the first team defense
The look that you needed.
right? Mm-hmm. And so, of course, all our quarterbacks are in red, right? I mean, they got a red practice jersey.
That was a QB
Did
once.
you
I
had
remember it.
you
I
had
remember
red
well,
on.
yeah.
So Coach John says, Griffith, get in there and be the be the
opposing team's QB.
yeah, be the scout team quarterback, and so Griff does it, and the play that we had called is the safety has the quarterback, and Dave did not hold back and just whacked Griff, our first team quarterback, and just laid him out. And I just remember Andy throwing his clipboard. He didn't lose his temper very often. He's very calm and collected.
Yes.
But he did lose it that time. And
I think it went about 30 yards.
Clipboard. Probably longer than he can hit his driver right now.
Was that the end of
he called him a hot dog,
scout team's
I
offense?
may have been the
that
last
year?
time. And I remember Coach Toad kind of like laughing a little bit. Like, that was pretty
That
good.
was quite
but
a hit.
Don't ever do that again. You know,
I think Griff shrugged it off and said it sounded louder than it really was. He shrugged it off like it was no big deal.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, but he called him a hot dog, didn't he? Like, no,
I
and you're a
think
hot
he-
dog.
yeah, you're a hot dog, and
You're a
whipped
damn
his
hot dog, and he threw his
clipboard at him.
clipboard and he got mad. So
Coach Johnson, I'm sure
happens.
he's watching.
well, he didn't want to lose his ace in the hole. You know,
Well, as it turned out, you needed him.
yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to, break his.
Well, Griffin got hit
throwing him.
very often before that.
Maybe
so.
toughened him up a little bit too for the stretch run. What other funny stories do you guys remember from that year that you can?
I just remember Fred's pregame speeches. He would just always come up with these
Unbelievable.
he would make things up, but they were real creative and interesting. And the one we talked about, I remember is like, last night I had a dream. He was like, Martin
Always
Luther
had
King
dreams,
Jr.
yeah.
And last night I had a dream, and he said I was an old man in a rocking chair on my porch with a blanket, and he tells it better. The phone rang. My wife said someone's on the phone for the 25th state championship anniversary, and he's like, telling us these stories. Like it's like he's giving us these
visions
premonitions.
almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And that goes back to the old men have visions, young men dream new dreams, old men have visions. That was our pregame
chapel
in our chapel.
song.
We went to chapel before every game, and we were quiet. And we had these songs, and that was one of the lyrics from one of the songs.
the
But that was like a
traditions.
bonding tradition. Yeah, the traditions. That's one
The
of the
spirit
big traditions.
tree. Coach
Spirit
Tone's
tree.
speeches. I was a backup quarterback, and I wanted to punch somebody in the neck. I mean, I literally thought. I mean, I hope I don't get a penalty running on the field here. I'm going to. I'm going
There
to
were some
drill
good ones.
somebody.
Legendary.
How much of that do you think was absolute BS? 95%.
Yeah,
had to have
creative
been.
though, creative and
Oh, it's
energizing,
masterful. I wish
exciting.
we had some of those bottled
Yeah.
or captured to go
Would've
back
been
because
great
they
to
were
hear recordings.
classics.
I think our sophomore year, we're playing Lures, or I think it was Lures and Andy Johns at halftime or something. Is that
Yeah.
that
he
was
said
something.
that
jerseys.
some Dwenger alum or something that worked, I forget the name.
It's a janitor.
Was a janitor and
Yeah.
came up with some money, and he said wanted to give jerseys to the Dwenger team, and he brought out these boxes with brand new jerseys, and we ripped off our jerseys and put these new jerseys on.
At
It came
halftime.
out at halftime,
Like Notre Dame.
It's like a Notre Dame.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah,
halftime
and-
switch.
We
Yes.
switched green jerseys at halftime. Yeah.
They weren't green.
No,
I think they were,
but
weren't they?
No, they were like,
Come
on,
mesh
Brian.
brand new. We
They
weren't
were a
wearing-
different color.
Yeah.
They were a different color.
They
It was blue, but a different shade.
different
blue,
shade
what
of
I
blue or
remember.
something.
Yeah, I
But
don't
they
know.
were new.
But
Did you
anyway,
wear them the rest of the
brand new.
year?
Brand new.
Brand
yeah.
new. But that whole story, I'm pretty sure
Was made.
I'm pretty
up.
sure it was made up, but it was
classic.
Yeah. Well, there's so many good stories, and where could we begin? I mean, I don't even know.
Well, are there any
All the-
others?
No, I think parking lot drill was fun. So back then, so if it'd be closer to Washington Center Road. The guards and tackles and centers would work over there, running through tires and running through the chutes. And I think it was just our senior year. I don't remember it before that. We came up with this parking lot drill where there was no running backs or quarterbacks or receivers with us. So we'd go over there toward the parking lot, and we'd put other second string linemen in the backfield, line the defense up, and said, doesn't matter who's running the ball, and then run toward the parking lot and end in the parking lot. You would go through off the grass and into the parking lot, and we called it parking lot drill.
Oh
I remember we had a giant sign in our weight room that said that the traditions
Yeah.
of Bishop Dwenger football
Will
will
not
not
be
be entrusted to
entrusted
the weak or timid. And you see that for 4 years or a couple of years before you get there, and you're like, well, that was kind of burned into your brain. Buckling the helmets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chin
We saw the
snaps.
stadium. We'd buckle the chin straps, and it echoed in the bus.
Hit
That was
the
a
bump.
tradition.
I remember riding all the way out to Warsaw with my helmet on.
No,
Freshman year
Yeah.
for a football game.
I sat by you.
I'm like,
Do you have a headache?
What in the
Sat by
world
you on the bus
are
that
we
day.
doing? We have no seatbelts on, but we got full equipment on.
Yeah.
But do you guys remember that? What our record was that year, freshman
Yeah,
year?
4-4.
Worst
Four
Dwenger
and
team in
four.
history, we were told.
Yeah,
As freshmen.
Yeah, we were just
Who beat you?
Warsaw, Lures.
Warsaw,
Snyder.
Lane, Elmhurst.
Lane. You guys played an 8th grade team.
No, they were not. That was
ninth
when-
grade.
They were ninth grade.
Ninth grade Lane.
That's when Snyder was 10 through 12.
Oh,
I learned something new
changed it.
tonight.
So then Elmhurst beat us. They were really good, but most of those kids that beat us freshman year weren't there senior year. I'm not sure what happened to
But
them.
anyway, they told us you're the
Yeah.
worst Dwenger team,
Yeah.
freshman Dwenger team in history.
Yeah.
So
That made you feel good.
Then we
Get in the weight room and work.
We had nowhere else to go up.
We just had from 4-4 to 14-0.
I do remember.
Brian, this is not helping your resume as the best team ever.
Right.
Right. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, no, it is helping us because we got so much better that we just dominated.
To his point, the best team, maybe not the most
best
talented.
Team. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of your teammates.
One more.
Yeah, go ahead.
We were in film one time, and Reitzig has not made a mistake like in 5 games. And I think Coach Johns was trying to find something wrong. And so he said something like, hey, Reitzig, are you a little bit too far back in your I formation? And Chris said, do you want me to change? And he goes, you smart ass. Like
He knew it.
he knew it. Like he was trying to find something
I'm glad
that was wrong with Chris's play.
He would just
and
remember he
that's
was
what
just
came
so
up with.
big for a tailback back then.
Yeah.
And ran, sometimes he looked like he ran up and down,
Yeah.
like
Eric
Eric
Dickerson
Dickerson.
style, yeah.
But at the point of contact, I can hear guys, speed up your feet on contact. He would.
he galloped,
And he
yeah.
would just plow through people. And it usually took more than one to get him down. Sometimes, 2, 3, 4 guys. He was the marquee guy on that team. Everybody remembers him. Who were some of the unheralded guys? We already talked about a few others. Who are 3 or 4 other guys that maybe didn't get a ton of credit, but, man, they sure made a
Jim
difference.
Taylor for blocking probably.
Yeah.
'Cause he didn't get the
Jim.
ball much, but he was a solid blocker the whole time.
And Jim was a senior, and little brother
all
was a
of
junior.
Jim was
right?
our monster back then.
Yeah,
he was our
monster.
monster guy. He was all city as a junior in defense.
Okay.
And then, again, great defense. Made the big interception against Snyder in the end zone. They were driving and makes the interception there.
Yeah,
and
Jim
then
made that.
I think he's an unheralded running back. And we had a lot of fullback screens to him.
Oh, the middle screen?
The middle screens. And he was a phenomenal football player.
Okay.
We had senior guys that would rotate in, and once in a while, like Larry Beceda,
Nose guard,
Barron,
Chris Barron.
Chris Barron,
that
yeah.
Dan Lazier. I mean, people that just
Yeah.
would get in the game and that were helping our
Contributors.
team a lot.
And I think we talked about it, but, I mean, John Allgaier's kicker, I mean,
Oh,
not
yeah.
only
He was
extra
automatic.
points, but his field goals, he didn't miss very many.
No, he was
Yeah.
something.
He was
He's a really good kicker.
Tremendous.
Dwenger had a stretch of great kickers.
Yeah, Rick
During
Reifenberg
the-
before that. And
Yeah, Chris Miller, we talked
Miller.
about earlier. And,
Right?
a lot
Tony
of-
Dembicki was a freshman. My senior year
But-
was pretty darn good.
I mean, the most talented guy on the team was Brian Ray. I mean, he punter, defensive end, and our split end. I mean, it couldn't have been a guy that had
Brian did everything.
more big plays than that guy.
yeah,
Well, and across all the all-state teams, he was on 3 of them.
really.
At 3 positions.
I-
if you did like the coaches and the
Pretty rare.
writers.
Did he go to
and-
Ball State?
He
Yeah.
did, yeah. And then Bloomington, the Bloomington had one.
HT 33,
Yeah,
top
yeah,
33.
He was
Yeah, and he was
something.
How many yards, Mark, did he get on the right sideline of scrimmage? Because we had center, right guard, right tackle, and we did a lot of I right, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What you calculated, was it like 89%?
It was like
I
I think he had like 2,144.
44. Or wait, was it?
for the
No,
season.
It was like 2,100 or 2,200 yards rushing. Mm-hmm. And remember, he only played like 2.5, 3 quarters.
For a lot of
Right?
those games.
For 3/4 of the games, I would say, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
I mean,
look at the scores.
so I mean, had he played 75 to 80% of the game, he probably could have had close to 3,000 yards that season, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I went back and looked at film, and it looks like to me about 85% of all of his yards came from the right side.
A lot of blasts.
Yeah, a lot of 36 blasts.
The old blast, and then the blast pass, of course, was
Of
a
course.
staple. And then the sprint out and up. Always, that's really tested the back end. Well, guys, we only got about 15 more minutes left in the segment. Jeff, what questions you have? I know there's stuff that I'm sure.
Well, I was just curious, in 1978, obviously the Saints have a great season and lose to Carmel for a state championship. Where were you guys in 78? Were you all playing at St. Charles, at St. Vincent's? Was it still kind of the CYO fed into Bishop Dwenger? Because, man, when I was a 4th grader, we were traveling all over the state of Indiana, to follow the 1990 team and the 91 and from there, I mean, we were just always going on the road for those playoff games. Were you guys in a similar situation?
Yeah. I was at St. Charles, 7th and 8th grade, so I remember going down to that Carmel game, I think Dixon and Wygan, and did they all play in that?
Farnball might have too.
Farm
Yeah,
ball.
Farnball,
team.
Pakongi,
Juniors.
Steg.
Yeah.
Farm ball, and
Isaacs.
Isaacs was the tailback.
but I remember
Grody was the quarterback.
Yeah, I remember it was cold that night, and I remember
cold.
Carmel came out in their matching stocking caps, team caps. If you guys remember, were you guys there?
Oh, I remember that.
Oh
I
yeah,
was
they
there.
had
Yeah.
and they had the capes. They had the full line
NFL style.
NFL style capes on the sidelines, and their their campus down there at Carmel was unbelievable. It was like going down to a college facility. So
And that team was loaded. I think they had
Yeah.
7 or 8 Division I football players. That
I think Mark
that
Herman
Carmel
had
team.
just left there, maybe
He might have.
a few years before
Yeah,
that.
and I
Maybe
think Dick Dolahan was the coach.
I believe you're
Oh
right.
wow.
Yep.
So-
And they were loaded. And that, you think about the disparity. I didn't mean to cut you off, Mark, but the disparity in enrollment. There was just 3 classes then, correct?
was just
Right. Dwenger had no business even playing a school that size. And yet it was 35-18, I believe, was the final score. They more than acquitted themselves. That was a really that was really, I think, the benchmark team. And the year before, they were under 500, the 77 team. And so that was quite an achievement. And they kind of, I think, in many ways, helped build that foundation for what you guys did 5 years later.
Yeah, because
sure.
Kevin and I were at St. Vincent's. And I remember hearing those names. All those, we mentioned Isaacs, Pakongi, Farmbaugh, Dixon, and Steger. I think Matt Steger's older brother was on the
Yeah,
team.
he
I
was
think.
on that team. Yeah,
And Matt Steger was with us at St.
there was
Vincent's.
a Reifenberg on that team.
Yeah,
pretty
and
sure.
So we
Yeah.
just knew
Steve
we just would
maybe,
think
or-
about and hear about them all the time, and that just was fuel for us to keep growing and keep
Keep
getting
the
better.
tradition going.
I do remember Coach Johns. We wore the number of the guy who played your position on our wrists. I
state
forget
game?
was that for the state game?
Might have been.
State game. Yeah.
Because I know I had Pakongi. He was the center, and so I know I
Oh,
had
from the
his
78
number.
season.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we
Oh,
had
that's
their
cool.
numbers on tape on our somewhere.
Kind of like finish the job for them.
Yeah,
Correct.
get
I
the
like
job
that.
done. It's nice.
That's a nice little tidbit. I
connection.
didn't know that happened.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I played for Queen of Angels, Precious Blood.
I was about to ask you that.
So, but on our team, I think one thing about our team was, we had 3 guys from Queen of Angels starting on that team.
Yeah.
And so we had St. Jude's, Brian Ray,
Yeah,
and
contributors,
then,
all the
across
CYO
board.
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like another one unheralded, Mark Newport. We only scored 14
Was he at St.
points.
Jude's?
No, he's Queen of Angels. Come on,
QA.
give us some love.
Oh, sorry.
So but he scored in the South Bend St. Joe semi-state game. Scored that first,
Yep.
in the first
How
quarter
about
on the
Tobin?
pass. Yeah,
Tobin,
and then,
too.
we gotta mention
He was a
Paul
junior
Tobin.
on that
Yeah.
team when
Paul Tobin.
Yeah.
when Chris
Yeah.
Reitzig went down with injury.
semi-state game.
How many games did Chris miss? Like
A couple.
Just
couple?
a half. I'd say
No,
just
just that
just
St.
that
Joe
one.
half.
Just that
Semi-
one.
Just
but
the
semi-
second half
that was
of
it.
the
I would have sworn that
state.
Tobin filled in.
He got
a
hurt
little
in the
bit more.
St. Joe game, right? And Paul Tobin came in. And it's like we never missed a beat. It's
Yeah,
like there
it
was no
something. It was
difference.
something.
Yeah.
He
we
was
just
hitting
made
holes.
we just made sure he ran over the right side of the line.
that helped.
Did you factor that into the 85%?
Yeah.
He had
He
like
had a great game.
175
He had a
yards or
big
something,
game.
didn't
He
he?
had a
And
big
just
half,
filled
yeah.
in like there was.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like anything different. It was weird, but it was awesome for him. He was a great player.
Yeah.
So he was a piece of that, big piece of that.
What you guys were talking upstairs, and I'll let anybody take this, about going to the captains to retrieve the SAC victory bell from Snyder.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a funny story. Who wants to tackle that one?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah.
Well, I think with the captains, and I don't even know if Coach said go. I just remember getting in a truck,
Yeah.
and going over to Snyder, and Coach Hawley found it somewhere back in some kind
Tucked
of locker
We
away.
met him
room.
at the front of the school, like near the office. He's
Yeah.
like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, well, let's see, where is that?" I like acted like I don't
He
know
acted
where that
like
is.
it
Was
was
it during the
yeah.
playoffs?
It
No,
was,
it was
That
like
was
the end
like
of the
Thursday
season.
after.
the
It was the
Thursday
day
after
Okay.
the Lures
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
It's like, let me see. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can
like-
find that.
Like they
for you.
haven't been ringing it all
Exactly.
fall.
Right. You want to make like,
it was
not that big
not
a
big a
deal.
deal.
It's not that big a deal. And
And
I
then
just
took us
remember
back to some
putting-
shed way back in the
Right.
back somewhere.
and then
It had like dirty clothes and stuff on it.
Yeah, blocking dummies and had to dig it out of this big
right.
shed.
And then
And you guys had to fish it out yourselves?
yeah,
He acted like, oh, it's just buried.
It was
in some
literally
shed back
under
here.
some tackling dummy.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
In the back
Who was
in the
it?
corner.
Who were all of you guys there?
I was
there.
I went. I'm sure
I
the
know I
captain
was there.
I went. Yeah.
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 Was Reitzig sick? that day?
Reitzig did not go to school. He was resting.
Okay.
And so I remember driving to his house, and we started ringing it, and he came out and got to see it, and he rang it. And then we took it back to school, and we didn't stop. We just started ringing it and took it throughout all the halls.
Every
And
hall.
all the
I love it.
people
Everyone came out of their classroom.
Other
It was crazy.
classrooms.
What a fun memory.
They endorsed it and welcomed it. It was really a big day.
At the time, though, are you guys thinking, wow, what an achievement. This feels so good, but we've got something way more
I
important
think we
still
felt
for
that
us?
way. Yeah,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
we felt that way. Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, I
Right.
think we just,
No, I
We
think
weren't satisfied.
No,
that
by
was
any
like
means.
the
So
first
that-
goal,
yeah,
right? Getting
yeah,
that bell
yeah,
was like
yeah.
goal number one.
get it back from
You know.
Snyder had it for 2 years.
yeah,
Yes.
after Rod Woodson for 2 years, we got the
Yeah.
belt back and felt good.
Well, I'll ask you guys this question: if we're agreeing that the '83 team was the best team in Bishop Dwenger history, what's the second best?
I go back to undefeated.
Yeah.
The '90 team.
I
For sure.
just think that's really
The team was really
That's
good.
the bar.
You know,
You had a parade All-American and
Yeah.
Ewell Wilson. You had a
Yeah.
quarterback going to IU.
You had,
you
you had an
Kevin Creda.
NFL tackle on
Yeah,
that
and-
team, right?
Yeah, he was a sophomore.
But
yeah, he ended up playing in the NFL. You had Cagnett, Chad Cagnett,
Chad,
played at
yeah.
Western.
What about
Michigan.
shutouts? How many shutouts did they have? I don't know.
I don't have my iPad in
I'd
front
say
of me.
undefeated and then defense.
You're all about those shutouts,
I
aren't
think,
you,
I
back
think
then?
undefeated and defense.
But the
Because
forward
defense
pass
won
was barely
championships.
invented.
They had 5
back then.
shutouts.
I think you overestimate
Thank
the,
you.
Oh,
the
they did.
rankings
Thank
of the
you,
players,
Jeff.
who's ranked this and that. It's undefeated.
Brian, they had
shutout.
5 shutouts.
Okay, well, there you go. It's 11. 11 against our first team.
Fair enough.
So it's
The
a
game
stat.
had changed
It's
a little
stat.
bit by then, and they were also had some big scores. But no, it's a fair argument.
Yeah, it's a point.
It's important. How about this question? How has the game changed, and how has Bishop Dwenger football changed, or is it the same? Okay, I'm going to start with you because you're very close to it. You've been doing broadcast now. Is this your second year, third year?
2.25.
2.25 years. So you get to see it. You've worked with Coach Garrett, and you know a lot of those coaches on the staff. So you're very intimately close to the program. And the thing I love most about Coach Garrett is he brought back a lot of the traditions
Right.
that had kind of gone away
Like what?
over time. Well, the spirit tree, the stickers, the helmet stickers.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some others.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
it's
I do too. Because I think at a program like that, tradition
It means a lot.
it means everything. What are your thoughts?
No, I think the game has changed big time from when we played, obviously, and but I think he still holds the traditions of Dwenger very close to his heart. He played, obviously coached. They moved since building Shield Stadium. We don't take a bus anymore and click our helmets
Right.
as you see the lights and coming around Anthony. I mean, that still
Right.
gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
When I drive by Anthony,
still looking for something to snap up?
thinking to snap, but he still has them do that as they're going out to the spirit tree. So he tries to keep some of those traditions going there. Defense, I mean, his still defensive minded.
They need to hear
hard
us.
hitting, those kinds of things that have made Dwenger what they are over the years. But I think just offensively, the game has changed, and sometimes we still are power football, and we're just sometimes not. These schools have gotten so big, Casey.
Yeah.
Carroll was a farm school back when we played, and Homestead was felt
They were
like driving
probably
to
too-
Indianapolis, going to Homestead when we played. So I think the game has changed, and there's a ton of talent in this area.
I totally agree. But the traditions are still there. And again, 2 state championships in the last 8 seasons.
Yeah.
So it's not like Dwenger. It feels like it at times because Dwenger fans they're hard. I mean, they're tough.
They are.
And the expectations are such.
But we wouldn't want it any other way.
No, you don't want it any other way. You want that bar set high. Same with Lures. And we talked a little bit upstairs about 0-2, how they started. And they didn't just lose 2 games. They got shellacked. Non-conference games. And here they are, co-champions in the SAC and probably the favorite to win a 2A state championship, certainly to get there. Terry, what are your thoughts?
Well, the other tradition that we started with our team was the pasta dinner.
Yes.
That
glad
started
you brought that up.
Oh,
your
wow.
mom was
Yeah,
a,
so
a-
we
a
started. Now
pasta
Kevin
maker.
says, which I don't argue. Kevin says it started at my house
did.
with my mom, and then that took off and continued. And then when in 15, 2 nephews, senior and sophomore, and Peter
Was a junior.
Was a junior, and the boys asked somehow it came up, and the boys asked my mom if she would do it for the team. So they brought it back and did it for another.
Brought her out of retirement to
out of retirement
Oh, wow.
for another 5 years.
That's awesome.
She did it through 2019 when my stepson Conley was a senior.
Oh, that's so cool.
And now nephew AJ, I think we tried to manage it, but AJ Brady, I think he said, "Nana, can we just have one every week?"
Has his own little personal one now.
Yeah, it was just, but it was fun. 25 boys there.
Oh, yeah.
It was senior heavy, but it was special. And
That's
to
cool.
see it come back, and she enjoyed it.
When
Did
did we fit in Fisher Stroh?
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
that kinda-
God.
Did we not
That's
do
right.
Fisher
we
Stroh
did-
senior
we
year?
did Fisher Stroh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
And that
a
kind
lot.
of led into that.
Yeah,
that.
so
it kinda
when we
morphed into that.
remember
Lincoln
back then you played on Saturday a lot of games. So we would go on Friday night. We'd go to Fish-a-Stroh at Coliseum and State, and
Yep.
then I shouldn't joke about this now.
I
but
remember Terry used to get 2 all-you-can-eats.
they'd take our order, and I'd say, "I'll have 2 all you can eat." It's not as funny now.
Charge me double so you didn't feel guilty.
It was funny back then.
that was tied in with the Mrs. Winklejohn, Diane
Right.
Winklejohn. Kind of, we did a
Yeah.
little of both.
Yeah.
It started a tradition of her
But
carrying.
the
She carried
pasta,
it on.
I think the pasta was usually on a Thursday night, and then we went to. I remember, we went to other houses. We used to go to Kevin's for pancakes.
Yeah.
After
2 days.
During 2 days, we'd go to Kevin's and make pancakes.
2 days.
Or
2 days
we'd
were
go to Azar's for the all-you-can-eat breakfast.
all-you-can-eat buffet
We
after
would
2
clean
days.
them out.
Some of the
Yeah.
team
Put
bonding.
them out of business.
Casey,
You know, the
team
greatest
bonding.
thing about, I remember going to Country Kitchen, and sometimes you ordered things from the menu, you get like bonus sausages underneath your pancakes. I don't know.
Only if you were lucky. If you're really lucky.
Well, guys, we only got a couple more minutes. Jeff, do you have any other questions for this crew?
No, I was just shocked to hear you guys talking about using the weight room. I mean, I don't even think we had a weight room when we were there in the 90s.
It was archaic.
There's a little old weight room, but, man, may have had like 4 pieces of equipment in there.
The Universal machine.
The
Yeah,
Universal.
couple squat
The
racks.
leaper was in there.
Yeah, the leaper.
Some
Gravity boots.
I
Yeah.
swear I'd be
Gravity boots.
6'2" if I
Yeah, I
didn't do
remember
the
those.
leaper.
Yeah, it wasn't big, but it was up there. It was a big sign. It was our big tradition. It was like,
Squat rack. And,
no week. Do they still have the weekend timid sign, or did they take that away?
I don't know. It's
Too much.
It's been a while since I've
probably
been in
too
a
much
weight room.
toxic masculinity. They probably took it away at some point along the line. I'd say bring it back.
Bring it back.
Bring it back.
It's got to be.
I mean, yeah.
It's probably over in Snyder's locker room underneath some tackling
Yeah,
dummies.
You had 26-year drought of no championships. Then you got a couple in 14 and 18. Bring it back. I mean, why not? It's football.
There were a couple traditions that died when I was there. So my freshman year during homecoming, they built a pile of it was like pallets and stuff.
Yep,
And I swear it was like 100 feet high, and they would light it on fire. So my freshman year was last year. They do that when you guys were
Yep,
there.
we did
They
that.
did.
For homecoming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The bonfire.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
bonfire.
that went away.
And then they had this thing where you could pay like $1 and you could take a sledgehammer to a car and beat it up. Did you
I
guys
remember that somewhere along the line.
Remember that, but it could have happened.
So my freshman year, that was going on during homecoming week, and then later that day in practice, my buddy was doing a bear crawl and cut his hand on a piece of glass. They didn't do that anymore.
That was the end of that.
That was the end of that.
Yeah.
What about
You know, the one thing we haven't talked about is Father Schaefer. And,
Yeah.
and the "We Will Rock You" song, and
Yeah.
and then he'd shut off the tape recorder back then, called
Yep.
the tape recorder, and right before it went into "We Are the Champions,"
Yep.
you know, in the locker room before it went out on the field.
To save the second half of the song until you won a state
Right.
championship.
Right.
Is that
State
correct?
championship, and he
Right.
finally, that's one of the memories I have is that night,
Yep.
is being in the locker room at Warren Central after the game.
Getting the second half of the song.
And Coach Tone saying, "Everybody shut up. We got something to play."
Yeah.
And they played We Are the
Probably on
Champions.
a
Yeah.
sad little tape recorder.
Yeah,
for
oh,
13.
wow.
Oh, like a
It was
small
it was
boom
a little
box.
tape recorder.
Yeah, like
Well, but but that's what I'm saying.
It wasn't a boom. It wasn't.
Yeah,
a
it
boom
wasn't a
box.
boom
It was
box,
tape
yeah.
recorder.
It was a tape
For
recorder.
13
Well, and then I
games,
think-
we never got to hear the "We Are the Champion" part. And then that one game, he said, "Look around the room right now. Look at everybody. These will be lifetime memories."
Yeah.
I rember him saying that. It's true.
I get chills just thinking about
it's
it.
true.
Well, and then when
I remember
then
them
we
firing up cigars. A few
Yeah,
of the coaches.
they
Yeah,
did.
that's great.
I'm
With the
like,
kids?
Man, I wish I had one of those.
They deserve
You had
it.
to wait till graduation.
Well, and I think with earlier mentioned We Believe, which was from Father Jim, and he really, real important spiritual aspect to it.
Yeah, that
It
chapel
really
piece
was.
was
That
a big
chapel
part
was
of our
big.
Why don't we
team.
close
He
with
was
that?
bonding. It was a
He was
bonding
special.
Well, let's close with that because even though I played and Jeff played, I'm sure Jeff would agree, we didn't get that state championship.
You didn't hear the end of the song.
But we got, we didn't get the second half of the song, although I've heard it before. We did that connection, though, with your spirituality.
Yeah.
And how it's so intertwined with that program and how special that was. The pregame mass. I just remember guys just strewn out all over the place after communion. And, it, for me anyways, it enriched my faith.
Nope, I agree.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Real quick, we only got a couple minutes. Talk about that briefly, Kevin, and we'll go around the room.
I always sat at same place in the chapel. Brian was next to me, and Terry was right next to him every time. And I just remember the songs. I wish I could find copies of them. The things that Father Schaefer would do, the songs would be
because you had a piece of paper with the lyrics on it, didn't we?
Trust in the Lord was one of them.
With all your heart. Yep.
Be not afraid.
Hail Mary. Gentle woman.
Gentle
Hail
woman.
Mary,
Just those things. I hear them in church. And
hearing all those young men's voices.
We sang. We probably didn't sing at church, but we sang in that chapel.
I didn't sing, with your family on Sunday Mass, but you did at that Mass.
Yeah.
What do you remember, Terry?
Well, I think, Father Jim, and he just retired, and I actually saw the article that he was retiring, and I went to Mass on Sunday back in the spring, probably May or June, to hopefully to see him and thank him. And he wasn't there. I think he had just broken his leg, Kevin, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So, but Father Jim, it was special, and we're very grateful to him for all that he did for us and that spiritual component
that era
that he brought to it.
He was still the team pastor when I played in the late 80s, for sure.
I think he worked really hard on cultivating that environment.
He did.
And it worked. But that, trust in the Lord, you shall not. I could think of the lyrics, and he had a special recording.
Yeah.
We didn't just sing it. He had a recording. It was really cool.
For that song, for sure.
I think we tried to go find it on the internet. I think we did one time, but it was awesome. And then some of the coaches would do the petitions sometimes, like their own petitions, and just you could just feel a little bit with adults there, kind of feeling what they were thinking, and it was interesting.
Yeah,
Mr.
fellowship.
Coach Taylor had a few.
Truly, what fellowship looked like.
Yes,
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Kind of a male bonding. It was only men in there, young men, or men at Mass. There weren't like.
It's
female
another bonding
managers or anything. At least I don't
sports.
remember any of that. It was just like a real tradition-laden experience, and it was intertwined with your faith. And I think it made a lasting impact on a lot of men. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just remember after communion, like they said, guys laying on the floor around the chapel because all the chairs were taken, and I don't know how many songs they played, 2 or 3 of those that Kevin mentioned, and just relaxing and getting your mindset, spiritually. And then, a half hour later, you had gone to the locker room and got your equipment on, and you got taped up and your ankles taped or whatever, and you're in the cafeteria listening to Fred Tone get you ready to
kill somebody.
The
dichotomy. The dichotomy. That's such a great point, Mark, because you went from wanting to save the world, go out and feed the hungry, and then 30 minutes later, Coach Tone's got you wanting to gouge somebody's eyeballs out.
Yeah.
Punch him in the neck. So true. Punch him in the neck. Well, guys, this was a real treat. Congratulations. 40 years. Great memories. As I told you before, this was the team that really, I think, fostered a love of high school football for me as an 8th grader. And I owe this team a certain debt of gratitude. And I think people that like Northeast Indiana Game Night 26 years down the road maybe do as well, because it really was one of those seasons and certainly that playoff run and that state championship game that solidified my love of the sport. So thank you for joining Jeff and I down in the cave. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for remembering us.
Well, of course. We'll do it again in 10 years.
Thanks for having us, Swami.
God
it's our pleasure,
God
by the way. It's our
Thanks,
pleasure.
Case.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And you guys are welcome to stick around. Folks, we're going to take a short break. I'm going to walk whoever's leaving upstairs. Anybody's welcome to stick around, and we'll talk about tonight's sectional opening matchups, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Summit City, home to the 260's dedicated high school athletes and fans. Each victory and celebration captured by our camera. Treasure the highlights from the Summit Athletic Conference this season, or complete games live or on demand. After all, nobody's more proud to call Fort Wayne home than SummitCitySports.com. Thank you for watching Summit City Sports. To help broaden our coverage, we're asking you to become a monthly sponsor to our Patreon account. We produce weekly highlights and live video broadcast. When the Homestead Girls Golf Team won its first state title in program history, we were there. When Fort Wayne brought back 3 state titles in cross country, we were there. We believe in sharing positive stories and setting the standard for how high school sports should be covered. Join us and donate today.
In 1952, my father, Jim Kelly, opened his first dealership. Thanks to loyal customers, dedicated employees, community support, and a bit of luck, his business grew. 70 years later, that dealership has become the Kelly Automotive Group, with 14 brands in 3 locations, including our new Fort Wayne Auto Mall. Thank you for 70 amazing years. It's been the ride of a lifetime. We hope you join us for the next 70.
And welcome back, everybody, here in the cave. I'm hanging out with all my friends. Jeff Mahoney around the fort. Casey will be joining us shortly. And sectional week number 1, obviously, Class 6A and Class 5A are in byes. And, you know, if I counted it up correctly, you see here in Class 5A we have 1 sectional, Sectional 12 with Snyder and Northside. That's only has 3 teams. So 6A actually has more teams competing in the tournament than the 5A does. And obviously Dwenger started off the season in 5A, and they got that fixed about 2 weeks in. So it's going to be an interesting one. But speaking of Dwenger, they're in Sectional 19 here. They will host Wayne. This is a tough sectional, probably going through all the classes in northern Indiana. This is probably the toughest schedule or the toughest sectional. When you just look at the success of the teams, East Noble, New Haven, Leo all ended up tied for the NE8 title. It was New Haven beating Leo in overtime at Leo, and then Leo beat East Noble at East Noble. New Haven did not fare as well, losing at East Noble. That was just 2 weeks ago. And the Knights really handling the Bulldogs easily in that one. Obviously for the New Haven, that was their first loss of the season. And really, Mylan Graham has not been himself, has not even been close to 100% since the first half, the second quarter of that Columbia City game. So that's going to be the question heading into this Friday, just how healthy is Mylan and the Bulldogs for that matter. In the top half of the bracket, considered the weaker half, if you will, East Noble felt like they got the worst draw of just about anybody in the 260, winning their conference and then having to turn around and play somebody they're sharing the conference title with. And once again, you know, people have come out with the Sagarin ratings and whether or not, you know, if this were seeded, what it would look like, well, then you would have an East Noble taking on a South Side. So I guess not a whole lot would change really in this sectional. Wayne not playing Dwenger in the regular season makes this even more intriguing. But, man, the Saints handling business like they did. Now, obviously, Concordia's down a little bit this year, but Dwenger lost a few players a week before in that Snyder game. So in my mind, it made that 47-16 win against Concordia last week that much more impressive for the Saints. So we had talked about it a week ago. Maybe they're going to have to reinvent themselves a little bit without, and Casey, we're talking about sectional 19 right now, but Dwenger lost some key performers, most notably Trent Tittman.
Yes.
In that Snyder loss. And
huge loss.
Last week, they handled business against Concordia like you would expect them to do, but down a few guys. I don't want to say I saw it as surprising. I just saw it as this is not a team you have to scoff at here when they host Wayne on Friday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think the Saints, this is where they want to make hay in the postseason, and against 4A competition through the years, especially recently, they fared very well. Now, how will they play against a really good Wayne team? I don't want to say Wayne mailed it in last week, but they got down early to Snyder, and it sure looked like they kind of subbed and pulled off a little bit. No sense showing anything in a game that really didn't mean much.
Snyder did the same thing. I mean, that second half was kind
pretty
of
vanilla.
Looking at the roster, who's out there.
Yep. And that happens this time of year. I'll be curious to get your perspective on this, Kevin, since thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
It's been an up and down year for the Saints. Probably more down than up based on Dwenger's history and tradition. What do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, I think this is, one thing, and Jeff mentioned about some injuries to some running backs, but what's healthy is their offensive line. So they've got a very experienced and healthy offensive line. They kind of took care of business in the development of Ethan Springer. I think his confidence level is very high. But this is really a game of can Dwenger match the athleticism of the Wayne receivers and the Wayne running backs. I'm not sure we're going to see we've seen backs. The back at Snyder is probably as good as there is in Northeast Indiana and maybe the state. But the number of receivers and backs that Wayne has is they're all over the place. And they throw it up and they go up and make plays. And so that, for me as a coach, if I were a coach at Dwenger, I'd be very nervous about the speed at the tailback position and how long and athletic their receivers are. Dwenger's defensive backs are not
the biggest of
they're
fellas.
not big. And so that's going to be, to me, the challenge for this week. I do think Dwenger will be able to move the ball on them, but can Dwenger not give up the big plays? Well,
the Zimmerman kid had a great game last week. And I think we talked on the show that Dwenger, I think, only had one interception going into that game and ended up getting, I believe, 3. So
he did.
Maybe that will get the secondary and their defense a little confidence. That, hey, we can make some plays, some game-changing plays, because I think they're going to need that. I think it's a close game. I think special teams plays a big role in this game. I think about Wayne's return game, especially if Harold Mack's 100%. My understanding is he is 100%. Dangerous return man. If I'm Dwenger with that kicker, Lucas Wynn, I'm kicking that thing in the end zone every time, if you can. Get those touchbacks, and then punting the ball. Punt it out of bounds. Don't give any of those dangerous athletes opportunity to make a big play in the return game.
Yeah, and on the reverse side, Wayne's punting. They have some of their own issues with their special teams. I mean, that could be really something to watch as well. How Dwenger handles their speed, and then how does Wayne handle how good Dwenger can be on special teams as well.
Sound special teams, for sure. Well, I think it's going to come down to a lot of different variables, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if this came down to the fourth quarter and, a kick or a defining play. What you want to put a ball on this one, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to judge off that Snyder game last week. The one thing I took away from the Snyder game was, man, Uriah Buchanan looks almost better now in Week 9 than he did in 2 and 3.
Yep.
So he is really a special, unique talent for the Panthers. But yeah, there just wasn't much happening with Wayne last week. Kamar Nelson went out in that game in the second quarter with an ankle injury, so I'm just hoping that Kamar is healthy.
He's listed as a starter on defense, according to Sherwood Haydock. Yeah. And same thing with Jacob Sharon, number 10, the talented junior two-way player. But again, you know how these coaches do their starters
Yeah.
in two deeps.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys are going to play on offense. Make no mistake.
Yeah. So we'll see. You hope that both teams are healthy. I certainly give Wayne a chance if they're healthy.
For sure.
But, man, I just feel good about Bishop Dwenger in this one for some reason.
Yep.
And ultimately, I think it's how they responded against Concordia.
Yep. I was out at that game, and truthfully, it could have been 38-0 at half. Probably should have been. Dwenger missed an extra point and a short field goal, and it should have been 38-zip. And Concordia is just really, really young, but we'll get to them in a second. The next game on the ledger, DeKalb 5-4 at 2-7 Angola. Angola's won 2 in a row, Jeff.
Yeah.
After it just looked like, man, this could be one of those years they finish 0-10. Now they're talking about a possible 3-game win streak. I think this is a toss-up game right now where early in the season, DeKalb won, I believe, by 2 scores, maybe 13 points. I think it's tighter this time around.
Yeah, earlier it was 34-21, and that's with DeKalb completely healthy. But from what I understand, Lytle went out again last week, so another injury for their starting QB. That does a lot for them. And I agree with you, Casey. I think that Angola wins this game and really feels good about the end of their season. Yeah, I'm sorry.
They're hot right now.
I didn't know if you said that they would win, but I kind of feel like they are.
Swami had DeKalb by 4,
Yeah.
but I think it's much closer than the 13-point decision early in the season. And I think the key is going to be that offensive line for DeKalb. Can they run the ball against a much improved Angola defense with Caden Hinkle? If they can, if Caden Hinkle gets 150 to 175 yards, I think the Barons find a way to pull this out in the end. But Angola's defense has played really, really well. They were down last week to Eastside 3-0, and that's all the Blazers got. And Eastside's been putting up some decent numbers this season. So kudos to Coach Andy Thomas up there at Angola. They've turned some things around. Any thoughts on this, Kevin?
Actually, I know Coach Thomas's daughter goes to Purdue with my daughter, and Angola at home. I know that sometimes in high school games it's not, that home away thing, but I think them playing at home, I really think that this is their chance at a win and to save the season. I agree with you, Jeff. I think this could be an Angola upset, and I would call that an upset.
I think so too, and winning 2 in a row, so they got a little momentum. And we talked about this last week. That is a really cool place to watch a football game.
Really cool.
Angola High School.
And there's a lot of good vibes going on over at Angola right now with the volleyball team, expected to win 3A state championship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, maybe they could make it 3 in a row. We'll see. East Noble 7-2 at New Haven 8-1. This is probably the game of the week. It's so weird how New Haven feels like they've just kind of fallen out of everybody's good graces. It's just bizarre because of an injury to one player, because they're still really good in so many areas. Is Mylan Graham, the Ohio State recruit, 100%? No, but I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to give them an option. But they've got other options. I mean, Trey Bates is a fantastic running back. James Hardy, the fourth, is a really, really good tight end. And I think their defense is much maligned. And even though that game a couple weeks ago was 31-7, they did score a couple late to make it somewhat interesting, Jeff.
Back. It was 31-7 with 4 minutes left to go in the game. So, they rattled
showed
off
some fight.
Yeah, they showed some fight. Hey, shout out to James Hardy. I mean, he's leading the team in tackles. He's now third on the team receiving yards. So he's really picked it up in Mylan's absence. I think Johnny Washington truly is the newcomer of the year in the NE8 for what he's been able to do this year. I mean, last year,
especially here in recent weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he had the game-clinching interception against Columbia City, you could say. Columbia City was going in to tie that game up. But this one right here, I have a hard time picking against East Noble. And, the more you look into East Noble, the more you get excited about Dylan Krell, and he's only a junior.
Yeah, he's tough.
Leads the team, has 70 tackles. He's a good receiver, good running back for him.
He's such a throwback player, Jeff. Doesn't he remind you of somebody back in our era? I mean, just a two-way guy, linebacker, running back, hard-nosed, reliable. doesn't complain about touches or any of that.
And he is like the optimist of the team. You know, he's the kid that just comes in smiling every day. So if you're having a bad day, you know, he's going to kind of turn it around for you. So I have a hard time seeing East Noble losing this game. Now, one of the big reasons I say that is because the advantage that East Noble has in special teams, especially with their kicker. Who's considered, you got two really good kickers in not Bonjour, but De Leon over at
Austin De Leon,
and then Sprague over at East Noble. Two really good kickers in the NE8. But I just feel like there's too many things. You have to, even if New Haven's 100% healthy, you need a Mylan Graham big play to kind of get yourself over the hump in this one. If he's not 100% or not there at all, which is no fault to his own, I think it's probably a rolled ankle, which they say could be harder to come back from lingering right from a broken ankle. But, yeah, this will be a fun game right here, and we'll see. Trey Bates has been awesome. I feel like he has been the best.
They're asking a lot of that kid on both sides of the ball, especially if Mylan's not 100%. And then I'm with you, Jeff. I tend to go to it's going to be chilly. There's potential for rain. I tend to lean towards the more physical team, the run-oriented team. This is definitely East Noble's forte with those three backs that you mentioned, Jeff. So Swami's got East Noble by 10. Kevin, any
I
put a ball on this?
I do. I really like East Noble's coach. I think he came from Angola.
Luke Amstead.
And I like what they did at the beginning of the season, right? They weren't afraid to play a 5A school, right?
And a
to
2A
learn from
power
and a 2A power school, and they handled a very, very good Lures team. So I agree with you. This is cold playoff football, and I would lean towards the running attack of East Noble.
Yep.
They're saying 41 degrees and rain tomorrow.
Yeah, I've seen that rain change off and on the last 48 hours. Hopefully it holds off. But it is what it is. I mean, we are into the postseason, and you get what you get. And this is why you, truthfully, have to have ball control, ground offense as part of your scheme. It has to be in northern Indiana, because you never can predict what Friday night's going to look like. All right, Jeff, the next one, Leo 7-2 at 1-8 Southside. We can't forget, remember a few years back, 7 years ago, actually, where Southside upset Leo 33-9. I remember that Coach Jared Souter's team was heavily favored, former Leo coach Jared Souter, and they got smacked in the mouth by the Archers. Can it happen this time around, Kevin?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
as much as I like what Southside's done this year and their new coach and getting a win this year, I think Leo's probably in this sectional is probably what, if we were seeding, I'd seed them as number one seed.
East Noble close,
correct,
number 2.
and East Noble close 2, maybe 1A. So I think South will actually make this competitive because they're so well coached. But in the end, I think this is Leo.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, just too much firepower.
South's so young
with the Lions. Yeah, South they'll hang around for a quarter and a half. But yeah, just way too much firepower. Ever since the 42-41 overtime loss at home against New Haven, you had the 14-7 win at East Noble, but 40-0, 48-0, 51-7, and 43-14.
Yeah, they're starting to put the pedal down.
Yeah,
it feels that way.
Yeah,
and they've been flying under the radar. They had that early season loss down at Kokomo, and then of course the 14-7. Do I have that right, against East Noble? I can't even envision this team scoring 7 points or fewer the way they're clicking right now, even with inclement weather. I think they're that good. So, yeah, this is a great opportunity because East Noble's got that tough opener. You know, iron sharpens iron. Is that a good thing for them to help prepare them for the second round? Or can Leo work on some things, tweak some things, rest up some guys? Who has the benefit here? I'd say the Lions do. getting a little bit of a respite with Southside in round one.
Yeah, and they're gonna see speed and this natural athleticism that they haven't seen all year over at Southside. Granted, the kids are young,
For sure.
but when you look at Irby and KJ and their young freshmen that have been contributing all year for Southside, these are real
Good
players.
athletes, yes.
They're just a few
young
years,
and inexperienced.
But yeah, make no mistake about it. Leo felt like they gave that game away to Kokomo. And that was week number 1, 16-14. The winner of this sectional takes on the winner of sectional 20, which is going to be Kokomo.
Yep, and we'll get to them here in a second.
And Columbia City's in that one. Is it sectional 18?
Sectional 20.
20.
Yep. The next one down, Jeff. Why don't we tackle that real quick? Kevin, I'll let you start with it. Columbia City, 5-4. The Eagles have dropped 4 in a row. And it feels like deja vu again with, like last year, was that an anomaly, right? They won a sectional for the first time in forever, won a conference championship. They got to that meat grinder portion of their schedule, but they didn't flinch. They rattled off a bunch of wins last year and had a great season. And I think they were state ranked, remember, when they were 5-0, pretty high. I think everybody thought, hey, we're going to win another conference championship or certainly vie for it.
They were ranked number 5 in 4A heading into that New Haven game, and New Haven was ranked 11.
Yeah, think of that.
New Haven beat them by 2 scores.
Yeah, the dichotomy and how their season has kind of gone a different direction. That being said, they're playing at 1-8 Huntington North. They rushed for over 400 yards earlier this year in a big win against the Vikings. So I think this really shapes up very, very well for Columbia City to kind of flush these last 4 weeks and get that good taste of winning back in their mouth. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've followed Columbus City a little bit here just because of the sectional and regional potential pairings for Dwenger, and this is going to be. I think this is Columbia City all the way on this one. It'll be interesting if they get by that first one. Like Mississinawa is sitting there at 9-0, but again, we get into the playoffs. Who of these teams played?
You guys played Mississinawa too, didn't you, in 1983?
We did. I don't want to get off on a tangent there, but some classic coach speak going on there about 11 starters being able to play on our team. It was classic. Anyway, but I think that Columbia City, I think they're going to play Kokomo in the sectional final.
Okay. Speaking of Kokomo, that's another game that we kind of talk about here locally. 7-2, the Cats are. They lost last week at Jay County. Coach Zagunda, you spent some time down there, Jeff. They're 4-5. I think Kokomo's got to be considered a huge favorite here, but man, JC is really, really improved.
Yeah, no doubt about it. With that rushing attack that they have there, A.J. Meyer's been leading them, and he wasn't even a running back last year. He's just a hard-nosed kid that Coach Segundo was able to find. And I don't think that Kokomo slaughters Jay County in this game. I mean, Jay County's been playing a lot of teams tough. They got the big win against Woodland, started off the season 3-0. I do think Kokomo's a way better team, but I just think the way Coach Segundo is going to slow down this game, or I should say speed it up, keep it on the ground. It's the same thing that Kokomo's going to do. But, yeah, this is a Kokomo team that felt like they probably should have won state last year. And they, for the most part, have the same team. Their only losses are against 5A McCutcheon, who's a power. It's 10-6. And then 6A Lafayette Jeff. So enough said there. You're playing up 2 classes. But I just feel like you almost saw this one back in week 1 or week 2. And Coach Dorfler feels like Leo gave that game away.
Oh, no doubt.
At Kokomo.
Oh, no doubt.
So it just feels like it's inevitable. Whoever Kokomo is going to play next, whether it's Marion or Frankfort, go Wildcats. And then in the championship, if it is Ole Miss. But, man, you got to remember, Ole Miss barely snuck by Norwell. Now, granted, that's Norwell in week number 1 when they were as healthy as could be.
Minus Cade Shelton. Right.
Shelton.
Right.
Right. But
he's been gone the whole year.
Right. Just talking about Drew Graft, who is their whole team, who's still not 100%, but is at least back playing for QB. Norwell. So, yeah.
And Tim Bonjour. I love that name, don't you?
Yeah.
Do they even have internet down in Gas City? I'm not sure they do. Okay, good.
Oh yeah, Ole Miss does a good job with their live streaming and all that stuff.
That's
so they
good
do
to
a
know.
Good job. Proud program.
Very proud. The Indians are. Are they still Indians, or did the PC police take their name from them too?
Nope, they're the Indians.
Okay, good. Keep it that way, Mrs. Sinawa. Mississenewa. Remember how you used to spell Mississippi as a kid?
Last I heard,
really fast.
Last I heard,
I do.
They were going to change from Indians to Redskins because they want to be like Knox.
Well, take it up a notch. I'll be okay with that.
Take it up a Knox.
Let's jump into Class 3A, shall we? Sectional 26, Jimtown at Fairfield. Jeff, I'm going to come to you first. The Jimmies 4-5, uncharacteristically 4-5 against 5-4 Fairfield. Swami's got Jimtown by 7. Do you think Fairfield can win this game at home?
Oh, 100%. I think Fairfield can win that game at home. Jimtown, man, how long ago was it? Their glory days when they were just predominantly power.
Lures, Jimtown battles, right?
I went to a few of them. Yeah,
in the
they were some great ones.
90s and the early
90s
2000s.
and mid-2000s, yeah. It feels like it's been close to 20 years since they've been really, really good. And so there's been kind of a change up there in terms of demographics and things like that, and I don't think they're quite the power.
Coach O'Shea was talking about that.
Yeah, they're not quite the power that they used to be, but they still have a ton of tradition, and they do play a pretty good schedule. So I think Jimtown is still a slight favorite, but if they can't stop Fairfield's option attack, it'll be a long night. I mean, it's, again, that formula. If option football is so hard to defend, if you don't see it a lot, and I don't know if Jimtown's opponents play that a lot, man, you get behind and you can't stop the fullback dive, let's say. All of a sudden you're playing catch-up and you're down a couple scores. I don't think either team's really built to come back from a big deficit. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree totally. I would go with Jimtown on this one as well. But just like what Carroll's going to face, not saying that Warsaw's going to beat Carroll, but it's a different way to prepare for an option attack.
It's
so,
like 4-down territory almost
all
anywhere
the time,
on the field.
right?
Yeah, all the time. And, yeah, if somebody's getting 2.5 to 3.5 yards a crack, it can be a really long night and limit your possessions.
If the weather is bad, I mean, sometimes that takes the pitch out of the play in an option attack too. So very interesting.
Yep. I always find that the disciplined schools don't have as much of an issue with the option. I mean, because it kind of goes.
You have your reads.
Yeah, it goes against what you've kind of always been taught. But you got to stay disciplined and just stay with your keys. But should be a good one. Fairfield coming off a huge win, 33-0 against Cherubusco.
Yeah, and the Falcons have had a nice season. So we'll see. They're clear up there by Goshen, kind of on the periphery of the game night coverage area. But I know Coach Thacker's done a nice job, and I think, this is a winnable game. It'd be a nice win for that program for sure against a storied program like Jimtown. Next game that we want to take a peek at in this sectional 26, 9-0 Knox. We talked last week about their legendary coach has been there for 47 years. Coach Radke, that's amazing. He hasn't been there, but he's been a head coach for 47 years. Merciful heavens, it's a long time to be yelling at kids. Lakeland 6-3. The Lakers, man, I really like Coach O'Shea. He was on the program last week, Kevin. Young guy. His dad was Kevin O'Shea, who won 5 state titles with Lafayette Central Catholic.
Right.
Just a really good, young, energetic coach. I mean, this is still a young team in spots, certainly key spots, but they do have some nice senior leaders. They almost beat West Noble at their place for the conference championship, lost by 1 in overtime. I think Lakeland is in this game till the end, especially if the weather cooperates, because they're going to have to be able to throw a little bit. And with Braden Holbrook, talented sophomore quarterback, he's every bit of 6'4", 6'4.5". Carson Mickham, the junior receiver, I think he can come up with some big plays. And the key will be Sean Conley. He sat out last week, the sophomore running back. And we were privy to that information, and we didn't let it leak out during the show. But he told us he was going to sit him out last week for that game because it against Bluffton didn't mean a whole lot, even though he said as much. You want to win it. You want to put your kids in a position to win it. Bluffton really controlled that game really from the beginning. Is Knox better than Bluffton? I don't think so. I think this is a winnable game. In fact, Swami's got Lakeland in an upset special by 1.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you can say is that Lakeland was able to throw the ball against them last year, and Knox won this sectional, knocking off West Noble a year ago. So they were able to throw the ball against Knox. I think that that's going to continue. They lost 65-28 a year ago to the Redskins. Holbrook threw for 285 yards, had 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. And you saw that Braden was throwing a lot last week against Bluffton too.
And they're better defensively, like this year, Lakeland is versus last year. No doubt about it. They're better.
Yeah, but you just wonder if this is the year, being that they're sophomore. The strength of that team for Lakeland is sophomores. Sometimes you just got to learn how to win in those situations, and Knox certainly knows how to do that. And coming into the game undefeated, 9-0, they're outscoring their opponents 41-11.
But look who they played.
They don't play
a lot of small schools, don't they?
Their toughest game was against North Judson, 22-18. North Judson's a 1A school.
Yeah,
that's 5-4.
Play a ton of small schools. No disrespect to Knox. I mean, Coach Radke's done a nice job building that program, but
they only
this
play
is a winnable game.
They only play 2 3A schools in the regular season.
Yeah, and you talk about learning how to win. Can Lakeland take something from that 35-34 overtime loss against West Noble a few weeks back? Did they learn something there? Can they get over the hump this time around? Kevin, I'm going to ask you. How does a team draw upon that, even though it wasn't a win, like Jeff said? Can you learn from that?
Absolutely. I mean, the confidence level when they go on that field, knowing that they just were in a big game, even though that they lost it, I think that gives the Lakeland team a lot of confidence. And I always go, when we get into these sectional, it's hard to know who's played who, and you could do the kind of matchup piece, but if Lakeland has played a much tougher schedule, you got to believe that they're going to be very confident going to this game.
Even if they are young, and it's at home.
That's the biggest thing right there. I'm not 100% sure where Knox is. I just know the kids from West Noble talking about last year, the drive to Knox was just forever.
Yeah, it's literally in the middle of nowhere. You might as well be in a cornfield in Illinois. It is that far.
And they did move it to 7:30, so you know that it's far away, right?
You got some travel.
So, yeah, I mean, with the studs that they have on Lakeland's team, even though they're young, I could definitely see it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
You know who's wanting Lakeland to win better than anybody is Coach Maywarder.
Well, let's jump to the next game here. That's a good segue, Jeff. West Noble, Coach Monty Maywarder's Chargers are 9-0. Hosting 5-4 Mishawaka Marion. I mean, Marion has won a ton of football games. I think they've won 5 or 6 sectionals here in the last 7 or 8 years. They do things the right way. We've seen some good battles with some of our local teams, but West Noble, like Lakeland, has never won a sectional championship. Both of these teams, what did we say last week, were 10-42. They had identical postseason records, Kevin. How wild is that? From the same conference.
Wow.
But they're both playing really good football.
They're neighbors too.
And they're neighbors. Yeah, according to Coach O'Shea, that you'd think that you could throw a rock out your window and hit the backside of the school. That's how far apart some of these schools are. But I want to see Lakeland or West Noble. I don't have a favorite. Give me one of them to advance. I want to see them both win their first round matchups and see where this goes. But I still think a lot of people are picking Marion in this game. I still think West Noble's got to be a slight favorite.
It's at West Noble. I mean, they got a great game day atmosphere there. But man, look at Mishawaka Marion. They lost to Penn 41-13, a 6A school. But they went to Angola and won 39-14. Hosted Elkhart, a 6A school, won 27-14. And then travel to South Bend and St. Joe and win at 16-10.
Right.
Those are really good wins.
Well, and you look at some commonality there. You talk about Angola. I think West Noble only beat them maybe by a couple scores. You talk about South Bend, St. Joe earlier in the year. Remember, lost 33-28 to Lakeland. So there's some comparisons there. I think it's a close matchup. I think it's a one-score type game. But again, I'm going to give West Noble a slight edge playing at home. You've got Seth Pruitt, who's having an amazing season. I think they ride his sturdy shoulders to a victory here in advance.
Yeah, Drew Yates has been having a great season as well, the senior quarterback. So you'd love to see it. You'd love to see a Lakeland West Noble rematch in round two. I feel like a lot of good things have to happen for that to happen.
I totally agree, but you know what? We've got a little good karma down here in the cave, and we're going to push for that. We'll cross our fingers. Let's jump out into sectional 27, Jeff, staying in Class 3A. Yorktown 4-5. I like to call them the Yorkies, Kevin. Yorktown 4-5 at 0-9 Concordia. Can the Cadets? You just saw them last week.
I did.
Can they? They're so young. They have one senior.
I know.
Carter Ripke, who's actually plays. They have 3 total, I believe, on their roster, and he's not even their starting quarterback anymore. Yeah. Have you ever heard? Just real quick. Have you ever seen a kid set a school record for passing? In a single game record, over 400 yards passing, and they've had good quarterbacks there in the last 10 or 15 years, 20 years, going back to the Dorfler boys. Single game school record and then get demoted. I've never seen anything like it. And you know what? He's a great kid. He's handled it like a champion. He's playing some receiver and some defense now as well. Carter Ripke, hats off to you, young man. That's how you do it. That's leadership.
Yep.
But you saw them last week. Can the Cadets? Could they come off the mat and pull off an upset here, Kevin?
Well, it's always fun to look at the competition. I mean, Concordia's played some phenomenal competition up here, and I don't know where Yorktown has played. They are so young at quarterback, offensive line, and running back. They're all sophomores, it seems like, and they're building for the future. But this quarterback is not too bad at throwing the ball, even though he did give up some picks last week against Dwenger. But
good targets though, Jack Belchner and A.J. Cook.
Right. So I guess I give them a fighting chance. And depending on who Yorktown has played, that's the key to me. Is who have they played in the regular season?
Well, they play a decent schedule down there. They're in the Muncie area. I feel like Delta and some of those schools, Jeff, are on Yorktown's schedule. They've got some tradition as well. I think they're going to be a pretty heavy favorite. They certainly can't be as young as Concordia. I mean, this is just.
I would give Yorktown the edge,
sure,
but
for sure.
I think Concordia is going to play well in this game.
I hope you're right. I like Coach Manigault a lot. I think he's a great coach, and those kids really fought hard last week against Dwenger. I mean, that game went sideways pretty quickly for the Cadets, but they kept fighting. They play the game the right way. No cheap shots, no talking trash. They just kept playing and playing and playing. A lot of Dwenger's JV guys got a lot of reps, my son included, and played almost 3 quarters at tackle, and that was kind of fun to see some of those guys get some Friday night reps. But I think Concordia may be a year or two away from being pretty darn good, especially in the 3A landscape. I just don't think it's going to be tomorrow night against Yorktown. Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, first off, it was nice to see that Victor Sawyer had a nice game, rushing for over 5 yards a carry against Bishop Dwenger. Did a lot of that come in the second half there?
A lot of it did, yeah.
Yeah, but like you said,
midway through the second quarter, Coach Garrett pretty much pulled the plug on.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much all second and third teamers the rest of the game. Even after Concordia scored a couple times in the third quarter.
Right. He didn't panic.
Yeah. Yep. And it was 34-16 or something. It was still technically a 3-score lead, but you thought, oh my gosh, what's going on? And to their credit, Dwenger's credit, those second and third teamers put together a couple nice drives. But yeah, Sawyer had a nice game running the ball, plays the game really hard, Jeff, and maybe they got a little confidence from some of the success they had there in the second half against the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, you hope so, because it's this one right here that really bothers me. 35-6, the loss against Southside. So many interceptions that they've thrown this year. It almost just seems like they're willing to air it up and they don't care what the consequences are. Mm-hmm. So not going to really play it too close to the vest. But it's hard to see it. I mean, this right here against Eastbrook looks good.
Even the Cecina score was not too lopsided in week 1.
Right. But then it just makes you wonder if injuries have really taken its toll to where they've almost been non-existent in the second half of the regular season schedule this year.
And I think the schedule is part of that. I mean, some of those matchups just are not very favorable, especially for such a young team.
Well, you get Snyder right out of the gates. North Lures, I mean, yeah, like you said, tough. And then they're playing a Homestead right there. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I think Yorktown's the favorite in this one. I think
Yeah.
Concordia can make it a game. I think you're asking a little bit too much to get them over the top.
Yep. I think they'll need some turnovers early and get in a position. I mean, they throw it so much, and with as many interceptions as they've given up, it's a tall task. If they play a clean game, and that's what Coach Manigault's been asking for all year, and they really haven't, like 0 turnovers, clean game, no penalties or very few penalties, they got a shot. But if they throw it around, they'll be in trouble.
It almost seems like they average about 3 interceptions a game.
At least, yeah. I mean, I feel like they had maybe 29 perhaps going into last week, something like that. It was a big number. Wow. 26, 29, and then they had, I think, 3 against the Saints. Okay, next one, Delta, 5-4, the Eagles, another tradition-rich program from that Muncie area at Norwell, 3-6. And all of a sudden, Norwell, kudos to Coach Josh Gerber.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Jeff. We talk about dichotomies a lot. Last year, Norwell looked like arguably the best team in the area for a good stretch of our season, and then they kind of tanked, for lack of a better term, at the end of the year. It kind of fell apart a little bit. It's just the opposite this year. They couldn't get out of their own way for so long, and now they put together a couple really nice wins here in back-to-back weeks, including last week at Columbia City, a Columbia City team that, beat them a year ago for a conference championship. I give them a ton of credit because they've been dealing with injuries from the very preseason on, with Cade Shelton going down with a season-ending injury and so many others. You mentioned Drew Graft, but they're finally as close to healthy as they've been since week 1. And I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they rose up and pulled off an upset here.
Yeah. When Bonjour and Graft went down, they were up 16-14.
Bonjour.
In this game. And those guys got hurt 3 plays away from each other. Mm-hmm. So I think it was Graft went down, 3 plays later, Bonjour goes down.
Yep.
But I guess what I like about him is Graff throws for nearly 300 yards in this win against Huntington North, and then Bonjour runs for almost 200 yards in the win against Columbia City. So they have options. Mm-hmm. They can look at what the defense is putting out there and say, okay, you're going to stack us in the box. We're going to go to the air. I heard Bodenheimer.
I think he might be out. Trey Bodenheimer, who was their
had a touchdown last week.
Yeah, he's such a good football player. I don't know that for certain, but he was their only representative on our PT 40 at the beginning of the year in game night. Very talented player. If he's not able to go, I think that's a big loss for the Knights.
Yeah, and Graft is nowhere near 100%.
But an 80% Drew Graft is still better.
Really good.
Yeah.
Coach calls him the best athlete on the team. So, yeah, I really love this game, and I love the fight in the Knights.
You just got to wonder where mentally Delta is. Like, you've beat this team,
right?
And
it's hard to beat a team twice.
Can you get those 17 and 18-year-old boys to say, this is going to be a fight?
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting mentally how Delta comes into this game.
Yeah, it's been a couple months too. Yeah, you're right, Kevin. That's a good point.
3 straight losses, 2 straight wins, and Norwell's the one that feels lucky that they get a chance to play Delta again.
Right. It's like a new season for them.
And I just want another week for us to be able to say bonjour. Right? All right, next game, Belmont 0-9. Coach Hall's Braves have battled. I mean, I think this is a team that, they couldn't even score at the beginning of the year, Jeff, and then they finally have shown some fight and doing some things offensively. At Garrett, 4-5. Garrett's done some good things. Coach Chris Depew, he's a veteran coach, and I think he's gotten a lot out of his Railroaders this year. But my goodness, can Belmont hang around in this one? Do you think they've got what it takes to pull off an upset up at G-Town, or does Garrett win this easily?
Yeah, I think Garrett wins this one. I think Garrett knows how to manage the game. I think that this is going to be a quick one, and in the slop, Garrett handles them pretty easy, man. This is a Belmont team that's being outscored 41-5 on the season. The NE8's as good as it's ever been, and they played Heritage and South Adams out of conference, which are 2 really, really good games too. Mm-hmm. Man, South Adams beat them 48-0. I
know. But I think this is a much better team now. This Belmont team is playing much better towards the second half of the season. I think it's closer. I think it's probably a 3-score game. But again, they're not on turf up there in G-Town, are they? They're in the grass, right? Am I thinking
I
correctly?
believe so.
And
Belmont's
Could be
grass
sloppy.
too.
Belmont's grass too, but it could be sloppy. I wouldn't be surprised if Coach Hall and some of his cohorts are up there tonight pouring buckets of water on the field to try to make it a mud bowl. If it's a mudder with Belmont's offense, what they want to do, they could hang around in this game if it's a quagmire up there. But if it's a fairly dry track, I think Garrett runs away with it.
Well, it's crazy, too, listening to Kevin and all the guys talking about all the success back in 1983. It really seemed like Belmont had quite the athletic programs back then.
They did, and they had a coach back then, Al Herentz, who
One of the best.
and they were so well prepared for us. And
Is Coach Aaron still alive, do you know?
Yes.
He is?
I went golfing with him like 3 years ago.
You did?
wow,
He was an assistant
shoot
coach.
pretty good?
He's a really good golfer. He shoots in like the 80s.
Let's get him down here, right?
that'd be a great interview.
Oh, I think Coach Aaron
I know he
got
lives
so much respect.
half the year in Florida. Because didn't he coach at Concordia also?
He was at Wayne.
Wayne?
and then
know
did he
that.
go to Indy for
Yes.
a little
Yes,
bit?
he
North,
did
he
as
was
well.
at North Central, I believe, in
Right.
Indy. It seems like a lot of coaches have been in North Central.
It seems like that's a destination place, doesn't it? No, we'll try to get him on. He's definitely a really, really good coach, and his time there at Belmont, 19-7.
19-7.
Is that right?
Correct. Brian Ray had
That pretty close game.
Yeah.
Again, whether or not it's the greatest team ever in Bishop Dwenger history is debatable. Brian Canary.
I don't think so.
Brian's out here. He's staring across from me. He's just seething.
11 shutouts.
Yeah.
Casey.
No, for sure. So we'll discuss that one. I think Garrett wins this easily. The next game, Jeff, 8-1 Heritage at 2-7 Woodland. We've talked a little bit about Woodland. You know, ever since Drew Fleek broke his wrist and went out, that team's never been quite the same. They've had a coaching change. What started out, I think, so promising. They had, remember, the passing attack to kind of complement Drew early in the season has just kind of been a slow decline for the Warriors, and that's been hard to see for that program. Heritage, conversely, 8-1 for Coach Kolkman.
Yeah,
former,
Coach Kolkman.
you know,
he's
BD,
going to have
he was
them ready.
quarterback.
I don't think there's
This is a team that playing, you know, you take out their one anomaly game against Adams Central, where they got beat pretty handily by the Flying Jets. They've been really, really good. Right. Why don't you take it, Kevin?
Yeah, I just think Coach Kolkman will have them ready defensively. He's probably as good as you're going to get from a
schematically sound.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't think Woodland has a chance in this one. There's a lot going on at Woodland right now.
Yeah,
with the coaching change and everything. I just think they're probably looking towards basketball.
Yeah, I think you're right. Jeff, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, the 27-21 win over Bluffton was most likely the game of the year in the ACAC.
That was a great game.
That was a huge W, and it's just Heritage. It's just their year. And, man, it has been a long time, I think, since they've won a sectional. But, you know, with Kobe being a senior and the size that they have, I don't see anybody beating them in the sectional, even though Sam seems to think, okay, there you go, last sectional was in 2012. Mm-hmm. They beat Jimtown for
11 years ago. No, Casey's done a nice job. This is, year 4, I believe, for him. That's kind of that benchmark for any coach to kind of get his thing, you know, his systems instilled. Heritage, I think, in a really good spot here. The key, though, is Kobe Meyer. If there's one guy on that roster that cannot get injured or ill afford to lose, it's Kobe Meyer. So if I'm Casey, we get our 2 or 3 score lead, I'm getting real careful with him. He's not taking any unnecessary hits.
Start working on the passing game or something.
Well, or just shuffle in some other guys. But if you're working on the passing game, you better get it out quickly. You know, don't want him taking unnecessary shots is the point. So
that's one thing that shocked me about Heritage, though, is how big they are.
No, they've got
on
some
the
good
offensive,
size.
defensive line.
Yeah, no, that Charlie Riddle kid, a junior, really, really good lineman. I would not be surprised at all if he gets some All-State attention this year. All right, sectional 35 and 2A, Jeff. Can we jump down to that real quick? Wabash 2-7 at Eastside 6-3. Where are the Blazers after last week's disappointing regular season finale loss against Angola? I mean, I think most of us thought they were really clicking on all cylinders, and they kind of just laid an egg. I don't know enough about that game, if they rested a lot of people, but kind of looking at the stats, they just look like they got flat out beat by Angola.
But it makes a little bit of sense, right? Like the week before, they crushed Central Noble to win the conference.
Win the small division, yep.
So some of these Week 9 games, I mean, Coach Haydock said it, last week, we're not preparing for Snyder. We want to be healthy, and we're getting ready for the playoffs.
And we go back to our conversation a week ago. Man,
with Coach O'Shea.
Yeah, well, and even beyond that, wouldn't it be nice to have those Week 9 championship games like we had once upon a time, North versus South, back in the heyday of the SAC. I don't know if they'll reformat things, but man, that Week 9 almost seems like a giveaway, doesn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see that come back. It's not that far off. You move Homestead down, have a division down there. It can be done.
Yeah, I think they need to reshuffle the whole A versus B and either do like a snake thing, like I suggested in my column a couple weeks ago. But whatever, I don't want to beat that dead horse.
That's another whole podcast.
Yeah, again, we discussed it ad nauseum a couple weeks ago, and I think there's some valid points there. I understand what they're doing, but Week 9 just seems those. I mean, we've had a handful in the last 20 years where maybe Lures and Dwenger were playing Week 9, or maybe I don't know if Snyder Dwenger had some Week 9 in there as well, or maybe
it was Lures and Snyder 2 years ago.
Okay,
and then Snyder beat Lures, and then there was a 3-way tie for the SAC.
So we've had a few, but it seems like all too often everything's kind of sewn up,
settled.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I think Eastside probably wins this game pretty easily. Wabash certainly is a place that Coach Brandowie will be familiar with, having coached down in that neck of the woods before he came over to Eastside. I think the Blazers get healthy and get right and get a big W in this one. I think Lincoln Carter rushes for 200 yards, and they win pretty easily. All right, Jeff, the next one. Bishop Lures, 6-3. Speaking of Bishop Lures, congratulations to the Knights. Even though they lost a heartbreaker to Homestead, a great game. Mickey Daring, I just want to say this. He right now is, I think, a legit dark horse to be Game Night Player of the Year.
Oh, wow.
That kid can flat out play.
Both sides of the ball.
Both sides of the ball.
Both sides of the ball.
Plays with so much heart. I'm not saying he's going to be, but I'm throwing his name into the conversation right now because I love how Mickey Daring plays. Bishop Lures 6-3 at Cherubusco 2-7. This Cherubusco team under Coach Paul Sage, probably the worst Busco team in the last 20 years. And there could be some others, but in my memory, they are definitely down. They're young. I think we knew that going into this game. What a tough draw for Busco of all the teams to draw in that sectional 35.
Right.
They get the
swap them out with Whitco, it could be a totally different story.
Totally different story. Yeah, you get a win or two, and you start feeling good about everything. So, I don't know. It's unfortunate for Busco, but I think Lures is a prohibitive favorite, not only in this game but in this sectional. It's not a very strong sectional.
For sure. Yeah, I think Lures cruises through this particular sectional.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a whole lot on the other side of that, truthfully, on this half of the state. Just analyzing numbers and some of their future opponents. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because we got games to play. But as long as Lures doesn't suffer some key injuries, I don't see anybody in the next 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, beating them.
I could see Bluffton.
Maybe. I mean, the Lures handled them pretty well last year, and I think this Lures team's better.
Oh, wow.
I think this Lures team's better.
Wow.
I didn't think so 2 weeks into the season.
Right.
I was pretty critical of the Knights, truthfully. It didn't look like Lures football to me.
Right.
And they were in a little bit of disarray.
They got a group of seniors that just will not lose, right? Yeah. They are willing themselves to win. Like, you look at the rosters, you're like, there's no way they can play
match up with some
with these teams. And this team, they just find a way to win, and you gotta love that.
No, and a lot of them are two-way guys, but you got Mickey Daring, Isaac Zay, Damian Jackson, Cohen McKenzie. What a year he's had. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about Charlie Stansky a year ago, first-year starter at quarterback, and the season he had. Cohen McKenzie's kind of replicating that.
Yeah, he's improving every week.
And then those sophomores, Damian Surrey and some of those guys.
Yeah, Hogue had 13 tackles last week.
Some of these young guys are...
Wow. He's just a sophomore.
They're really, really talented. And so they've got a really nice blend. And that senior class, Big T, Tristan Woodcocks, Wes Javins, the tight end, defensive end. I mean... really good football player. And these kids, you got to give them a ton of credit and those coaches.
Yep.
Because it didn't look good going into week 3. And if you would have told me then, I'll bet you $500 that they'll be co-SAC champions, I would have taken that bet and lost.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw that coming. I don't think most people saw it coming outside of the Lures locker room. So
yeah, no, they've by far the best story in the SAC, and if I had to pick a team of the year in the SAC, it's easily Lures.
yeah, for sure. Now they have unfinished business. I mean, let's face it, at a program like Bishop Lures, it's all about blue rings.
Expectations are high.
They want number 12, and I think, you go back a few years ago to that heartbreaker against Weibo. Oh, and I know Coach Kyle Lindsay, we talked about it down here in the cave. That one sticks in the craw. And so pulling for the Knights to get another run, I don't think they have any trouble in this sectional, and that includes Eastside. And barring weather or just a big upset, I think
but there'll be motivation there.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
I mean, there's been a nice rivalry there between the two. And if they get them at home, I think that's how the bracket works.
Yes.
If they meet up, they'll be at Lures.
Yes, it should
with
be at Lures.
motivation on east side, right? I think that that gets them through, and then I don't see anybody in the bottom bracket.
And again, it's on grass out at Lures Field. Again, forecasting 2 weeks ahead, and with weather, you just never know.
Right?
You never know.
Eastside's grass, right?
Eastside's grass as well. Yes, and I think Coach Mason will probably be at either place pouring buckets of water down with. He'll probably have the fire truck come from Butler and load up the field.
Coach Brandewee doesn't even have to ask.
No, Coach Mason will do that. He'll be in charge of the weight room and the water saturation.
Hilarious.
Okay, let's drop down to sectional. Oh, no, sorry. I bailed on Prairie Heights in Central Noble. My bad, guys. Prairie Heights 0-9. Coach McCray, tough year for the Panthers at Central Noble. A new coach there at Central Noble, the Cougars, 3-6. I think they won this game 52-0 in week 4. Did Central Noble. I don't think it's that lopsided this time around, but I definitely think the Cougars win this one going away. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Concur.
Yeah, no, poor we the Heights.
Yeah, it's a rough situation up there. I'd love to see things turn around. I think Coach McCray's just a great guy, and it's unfortunate. They've had some decent wrestling teams and some other success in other sports, but the football program's definitely fallen on hard times.
And Brody Morgan now is the school's all-time leading passer, right? And he's only a junior?
Yes, that is correct.
So good for him.
Well,
2,456 yards passing in 2 years.
Braden Holbrook is just a few yards shy, I think, of becoming
the conference all-time.
Well, and Lakeland's all-time, and he's only a sophomore. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know if that speaks to the fact that the forward pass just came to the NECC a few years ago, or or these guys are really starting to sling it. All right, let's get into sectional 36. We talked briefly. Let's just talk about our one local entrant here, Jeff. Bluffton 7-2 at Alexandria 8-1. What a tough draw for both teams, but I think Bluffton's got to be the favorite here, especially, Jeff, because they've got some key cogs back in their lineup.
Yeah, with Jenkins and Moore. And look, you feel like you see this a lot in the sectionals here, how you got all the stinker teams on one side and then a lot of the good teams on the other side.
It's a blind draw, Jeff.
Yeah,
it's
ping pong.
I know.
It's just ping pongs.
I know. But, yeah, no, I think Bluffton will be clicking on all cylinders here. I don't know a whole lot about Alexandria.
Yeah, can you pull up their schedule?
Yeah, let's see what they look like here. 8-1, so that's really good. Only loss coming to Ole Miss, 33-21. That's a good win against Eastbrook. That's at a neutral site too. I wonder where they played that game.
God, and they beat Elwood 63-0. That's the team that we lost to without Jake. It was just Elwood. We lost to one of the Blues brothers.
You can't let it go, can you?
1987. It was the night before my 18th birthday.
But man, this is really impressive here from the Tigers. Alexandria. And, wish Bluffton the best in that one. It's been a special year for Coach Kunkel, and I know he's got aspirations of winning that second straight sectional.
It's at Alexandria. This time of year, officiating sometimes comes into play. Yeah, and Jeff, and you talk about Alexandria. They played Elwood. and they beat them 63-0. That's the same damn team that beat the 1987 Bishop Dwenger Saints in the semi-state. And they didn't even have Jake. They only had one of the Blues Brothers, and the Saints lost to him. Just unbelievable. I have, obviously, Kevin, not
you
gotten
can
over
let
that.
it go at some point.
No, that was a disappointing setback. I believe it was 1913 in the snow, and a bitter pill for sure. But Alexandria could be a dangerous team. Again, a lot of variables come into play this time of year, including weather. Bluffton, I hope they're not looking ahead to a rematch against Bishop Lures, but we'll be pulling for the Tigers. Jeff, let's wrap this up and cut Kevin loose. Class 1A, Sectional 44. Just real quick, North Miami at Southern Wells. Both of them are 1-8. I think this game goes either way. Maybe a slight edge to the Raiders of Southern Wells. And then the other game on the bottom side, Fremont 3-6 at Southwood 4-5. Remember Southwood? Used to have some great teams here. They'd be 9-0. It seemed like every year around this time, and you almost felt like, oh, could they be in the way of Adams Central? They're 4-5. I think they win this game, but Fremont is better. But the game, of course, in this sectional 44 that all eyeballs are on, although I think it's only for about a quarter. South Adams 6-3 at Adams Central. Undefeated Flying Jets. I don't see them overlooking their rivals. Do you, Jeff? I mean, this is probably the toughest game in the sectional. Right out of the chute, playing at home against, your natural rival. They already handled them pretty easily earlier this year, and it sounds like Zach Worm's back in the mix. Two-way trench monster for AC. I think the Flying Jets win this easily.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you 100%. 48-0 first time around. And, man, these guys are having success on so many different factors. Hamilton, their quarterback.
Jack Hamilton
is a commit to play baseball. Is that what I heard?
I think I heard that this week as well.
Lehigh?
I believe it was Lehigh. I think you're right. That's a nice offer for that kid. Really good athlete. Again, Ryan Black was our player of the year for game night a year ago. He's kind of a similar type quarterback, running, passing, just very efficient, doing what they ask him to do. They don't ask their quarterbacks to win games for them, but they play a huge part in distributing the ball. Keegan Bloom, again, that fullback dive, if he's getting 4, 5, 6, 7 yards a pop with that really veteran offensive line. I mean, I think they had 4 starters back this year. Listen, make no mistake, the Flying Jets have their eyes firmly set on a rematch against Indianapolis Lutheran. The Saints are undefeated and top-ranked. They could just cut out all this other shenanigans and just play this game in 2 or 3 weeks if they wanted to. I do not see either of those two teams losing. Could it happen? Of course. But they are both prohibitive favorites to get a rematch. 3rd year in a row, Kevin.
Yeah, why is Lutheran not moved up?
Or Adams Central.
Or Adams Central.
Yeah, we're not sure. We are not sure how any of that works.
But, boy, they were not too happy about moving Dwenger back down to 4A.
Right.
Yeah.
They had to get lawyers involved for that one, Casey.
That's what I heard. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't either. I don't understand it. Unless the COVID year had something to do. I know that's what kind of made the Dwenger one. There was a
part of
COVID
that.
year.
Okay.
Anyway.
I don't know.
They both have been the championship game 2 years in a row.
Right.
So,
and you think, I mean, again, hypothetically, how cool would it be to see Adams Central against Lures this year?
This
year.
Be
awesome.
Wouldn't that be a really compelling matchup?
It really would.
We're not going to get to see it. I don't see, again, certainly not in this sectional. I'm sure the folks at South Adams down in Bern or, Coach Greg Mosier or Grant Mosier, excuse me, Coach.
He'll have them ready.
No, yeah. And they've got their attention. But, again, they want to throw it around. Owen Warner, the quarterback, very, very accomplished quarterback. The weather's not going to be really conducive for them to do what they want to do, and they just don't match up in the trenches with Adams Central. And I think barring a catastrophic first half by the Flying Jets in terms of turnovers and things like that, I think they rush out to 35-0 halftime lead or something and then coast in the second half.
Hey, how do you like this one? Last time Adams Central didn't win a sectional, they lost to Southwood in 2020.
The Knights. We go.
28-14.
Yep. And that was one of those really good, talented, I believe, undefeated Southwood teams at the time. Well, Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having
It
me.
was a lot of fun that your cohorts all
talking
bailed
football.
on you. They're probably already snoring by now. Deep REM sleep. It's way past their bedtime. Well, Jeff, I'm going to walk Kevin upstairs, and I've got some buy or sell, and we'll close up shop in a couple minutes if that's okay with you.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, stay tuned, everybody.
Let's go, Gavin. Thanks, Jeff, for everything.
Oh, absolutely. And
I wanted to give a shout out to I guess we kind of mentioned it.
Welcome to the Summit City, home to the 260's dedicated high school athletes and fans. Each victory and celebration captured by our cameras. Treasure the highlights from the Summit Athletic Conference this season, or complete games live or on demand. After all, nobody's more proud to call Fort Wayne home than SummitCitySports.com. Thank you for watching Summit City Sports. To help broaden our coverage, we're asking you to become a monthly sponsor to our Patreon account. We produce weekly highlights and live video broadcast. When the Homestead girls golf team won its first state title in program history, we were there. When Fort Wayne brought back 3 state titles in cross country, we were there. We believe in sharing positive stories and setting the standard for how high school sports should be covered. Join us and donate today.
In 1952, my father, Jim Kelly, opened his first dealership. Thanks to loyal customers, dedicated employees, community support, and a bit of luck, his business grew. 70 years later, that dealership has become the Kelly Automotive Group, with 14 brands and 3 locations, including our new Fort Wayne Auto Mall. Thank you for 70 amazing years. It's been the ride of a lifetime. We hope you join us for the next 70.
I'll set it up for you. And welcome back to the program, everybody. Just a few minutes to wrap up this opening round sectional preview of Around the Fort. Jeff, last year we did some buy or sell segment that I thought was kind of fun. I've got 5 bullet points here. I'll throw them at you and we can discuss each of them briefly. The first one, are you going to buy or sell this statement? More than one SAC team makes it to state this year. You buying or selling?
I'll sell that one.
You think one or less?
I think if any school is going to make it to state out of the SAC, it's going to be Snyder. Obviously ranked number 1 in Class 5A for most of the year. Had the little slip up at Homestead, but as we were talking off camera with the guys here from the Bishop Dwenger 1983 state championship team, Homestead's still Homestead. They're still the largest school in our area. They still have twice as many football players as most of the schools in the SAC. They have a full team at the freshman level, at the JV level, their feeder schools. So, yes, I can only see. Well, I take that back.
I was going to say
Lures as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So are you buying now?
No, I think there's only going to be one team.
One of those two, though.
Yes.
Okay. Carroll doesn't make a repeat trip?
I don't think so. That would fully depend on Steely being 100% healthy, and I just don't think that's going to happen this year.
Right. And they've, we're probably looking at Hamilton Southeastern, a rematch there from earlier in the season. I think Carroll improved.
I think Carroll wins their sectional.
I do too, and we'll definitely delve into that next week as we get into 5A and 6A. But I'm gonna buy this. I think the SAC somehow finds a way to get 2 teams. I don't want to say Lures is a lock, but I think they're close to a lock. And I think either Snyder or Carroll finds a way to get through to their championship game in their respective class. So we'll see. The next one, Jeff. Buy or sell this statement. Bluffton repeats as sectional champion for the first time in program history.
Boy, I was thinking 100% for sure they do. But then after, going through their sectional like we just did, I would like to think that they are. And the biggest reason is getting Kamel Moore. So now you have another running back. So now Cooper Craig was never a starter all season long. He was, gets brought in off the sideline.
Just a freshman.
Yeah, but now he's like the second piece to that. So now Coach Kunkel has something to play around with. How do we get both of these electric backs who don't know when to stop, maybe in the same time during the game,
Maybe some reverses and things like that.
And then Tucker Jenkins, who you've been high on all year long, big player, him being back too.
He missed a lot in recent weeks, hasn't he?
In the middle of the season. He did not play in that loss against Heritage. I firmly believe you have those two guys playing against Heritage, they probably win that game.
Find a way to win it by a score instead of losing by a score.
But both of those guys did play against Adams Central, but like you were saying, this is just kind of a different year for Adams Central. The stars have all aligned, it seems like, with that team the last 2-3 years, really, but especially this year. No one's even sniffing them.
No, they're shutting things down early this year, and some of those scores are much closer than they really should be. Because they've rested guys, especially I think when Zach Worm went down. I think Coach Mosier thought, okay, we can ill afford to lose guys. So he pulled back just a little bit. Some of those scores maybe aren't as lopsided, even though it doesn't look like it, but compared to last year, some of those games may be 1 or 2 touchdowns closer, and I think it's because he's been a little bit craftier in his substitutions in the third quarter.
So I would just say that, yes, Bluffton wins their second sectional. And I firmly believe that Bluffton, Lures, Heritage, even though they're 3A, they're playing each other. That's a pick 'em.
Yes, I totally agree.
I don't know that Lures just runs all over any of those schools. Well, definitely doesn't run over them, maybe passing, but I think sectional. I think they win sectional, and that could be a really intriguing regional game against
Bluffton.
Lures.
Yeah, Bluffton and Lures rematch would be fun. Okay, Jeff, the winner of sectional 19 makes it to the Class 4A state championship game. Are you going to buy or sell that?
I'll buy it, and I'll just say it's Leo, and Leo beats Kokomo to get the revenge there, and it's just
in regionals, and then
you got to remember at one point in the season, Leo was, what were they, 3-2 or 2-2? Things were not looking that great
after
there.
the East Noble loss. Yeah, they were 2-2 or 3-2.
They won at East Noble, but before that was the New
Haven
loss.
1 point loss. Right.
Right.
That's
so
right. I think they were 2-2.
Yeah, at one point, they're not ranked. They're looking a little bit bleak. But then you got to think, okay, they've lost to some really, really good teams here. Kokomo currently is ranked 8th in the state. Leo's at 9th in the state. East Central's been at number 1 all season long.
They're really good in 4A. That's one of the best 4A teams, I'd say, in the last decade.
Yeah. So look at this. In the coaches poll in Class 4A, New Haven comes in at 6, East Noble at 7, Kokomo at 8, and Leo at 9. So based off that, then nobody coming out of that sectional or the regional is going to win state. But
it's a meat grinder. Sectional 19 is a meat grinder. And Wayne and Dwenger, don't sleep on either of those two teams. Whoever wins that game tomorrow night has a definitely a winnable second-round game against the winner of DeKalb Angola. And then who knows in a sectional championship environment what that would look like. A Wayne Dwenger winner, I think, would be a really intriguing matchup, whether it's Leo, East Noble, or I suppose New Haven.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the NE8 going up against the SAC and faring well. Well, that was East Noble going up against a 2A Lures team, and then Lures losing to New Haven. Well, now Lures beat Dwenger, but something about Dwenger, you just can't count these guys out, man.
No.
They are hard-nosed. I will say this, though. Of all the players that really jumps off the screen that, when you're watching games, I think Caden Hurst is number 1.
Yeah, he's got a different gear, doesn't he?
And some of the things that he's been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Kemar Nelson. I was super impressed with Uriah Buchanan last week. I don't remember him looking so fast.
He runs so hard and fast. And to put a bow on this one, let's not forget about Northwood. The Panthers coming up from Napanee. That team is very talented. They've got the Georgia recruit at wide receiver. That probably, if I was going to buy or sell this, I probably would sell this just from that standpoint that either Northwood or maybe even Northridge from the northern half of the state could knock off one of these teams, but we will see. Next statement, we got two more, Jeff. West Noble or Lakeland break through and win their first ever sectional title this year. Are you going to buy that or sell that?
I'm buying it.
You think one of them gets it done?
I really do. I feel like they've both been tested, most notably playing against each other. But Lakeland, you got the South Bend St. Joe win, which is awesome, and it's cool to know that Coach O'Shea was there as an assistant coach. And then I agree with what Kevin was saying, Burns, that loss against West Noble is a positive thing.
Because they were right there.
They were right there. I mean, they feel like they left that one slip away. West Noble feels like they let them hang around a little bit too long, and that's fine. But
the second round rematch, if they both find a way to win tomorrow night, would be what a compelling matchup that would be. Do I have that right? Is it?
Yeah, they're on the same side.
Yeah, that would be so cool. And then at that point,
you almost walk through.
We know one of them, is going to be, I think, a favorite on the other side. It's just they both got really tough opponents in Knox and Marion right out of the gate. I mean, tomorrow night they both could be bounced and we'd be like, well.
That's true, right?
It's very, very possible. So I'm not sure which way I'd go. I suppose going off of history, knowing that they're both 10-42 all time in the postseason and they've never won a sectional title, I'm gonna sell this, but I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope you're right, and one of them breaks through. But they got to take care of business tomorrow night.
You're right, though. Boy, they just clump together the good ones.
Yeah. I wish they would find a way to reseed some of these sectionals, but it is what it is. All right, last one, Jeff, and then we'll shut it down. Adams Central avenges the last 2 years' losses to Indy Lutheran in the Class 1A state title game. Do they get it done this year after 2 losses to the Saints? Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm selling it. And it's just the two styles of ball. And once again, Indy Lutheran probably should be like a cathedral type. They should probably be up in like
3A.
4A, 3A now.
Yes, they're so good.
Which is a whole nother conversation because, they're talking about taking special ed into consideration now with athletic enrollment. So you could really have a shakeup with some of our teams here in Fort Wayne. But yeah, right now, and I hate to say because Adams Central's as good as team as you're really going to find around this area for a 1A school.
No doubt.
But in the same sense, it just doesn't seem like
Lutheran. Match up?
Right. It almost seems like that Indy Lutheran team would do just fine in the SAC.
Because they've got size and they've got athletes. Yeah, they're really good. And last year I thought maybe Adams Central could get it done. They were actually closer 2 years ago in terms of the final outcome. And last year it was somewhere around, I don't know, second quarter, maybe early third, where it was pretty clear that Indy Lutheran was on a different plateau. And I don't know what they have returning compared to Adams Central, but I'm going to be a homer, and I'm going to buy that, and I'm going to say that Adams Central finds a way, like a 28-27 type thing. I just think Coach Mosher's done a great job, and I'd like to think those coaches will have a couple little tricks up their sleeve for that game that they haven't shown all year, but they've been prepping and working on. But we'll see. They got to get there first. But I just don't see anybody in Class 1A on this half of the state knocking them out off their course.
Yeah, we just honestly got to figure out a way of getting more awards for the Adams Central guys because it seems like week in, week out, they get left off stuff because so many guys contribute and because they dominate the way they do and their stars are only playing 2.5 or 2.5 quarters. So,
What game are you doing this week, Jeff?
New Haven. I'll be at New Haven. Excellent.
Well, that should be another fun one.
Yeah, super excited about that one.
What are you hearing on Milan? He's going to play, but just not 100%, or you think he's out?
Nothing. I've been hearing so much stuff the last couple of weeks. I just know what I saw when he tried to come out in the second half against Columbia City, and ultimately it's like if
Couldn't
you
put
can't
any weight on it laterally.
Right.
Yep.
If you can't do what you're accustomed to doing,
what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah.
Well,
Johnny Washington's raised his level, so if he can keep providing that big play threat and those big plays, and they can run the ball, that's a big if.
Yeah.
I think they got a shot. But East Noble right now just seems like they're playing at a really high level. Man, what they put up some points a week ago, didn't they?
Yeah, they sure did. And, I'd like to see what Jamarcus Turner could possibly do a little bit more in Milan's absence. But ultimately, it's all about that defensive front seven.
Mm-hmm.
So getting Mason Noak out there and a great game by Chris Stewart and James Hardy and
Corin Harris,
all those guys to make plays because
they got to get East Noble off the field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what East Noble does a great job of controlling games.
Yeah, chewing clock, and they've got so many good ball carriers, and that offensive line's really improved.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, have fun at that game. I'll be out at Wayne at Bishop Dwenger. It should be another fun one as well.
Sure.
So we'll compare notes next week, and we've got, hopefully, I won't say who it is, a surprise guest for our Coach in the Cave next week. So be sure to tune in then. Jeff, anything else to add?
Nope, that'll be it. I'm really excited about that Lakeland-Knox game. If there was one game that I could be at that I'm not at, it would probably be that one.
Yeah, I hope they hang around and find a way to see the Showtime Lakers pull it out late. We'll see. Well, for Jeff, I'm Casey. Thank you to the 83 BD guys that came in to commemorate 40-year anniversary of that first ever state championship here in Fort Wayne. This has been Around the Fort, week 10 of 2023. We'll see you next week.
Welcome to the Summit City, home to the 260s dedicated high school athletes and fans. Each victory and celebration captured by our cameras. Treasure the highlights from the Summit Athletic Conference this season, or complete games live or on demand. After all, nobody's more proud to call Fort Wayne home than SummitCitySports.com. Thank you for watching Summit City Sports. To help broaden our coverage, we're asking you to become a monthly sponsor to our Patreon account. We produce weekly highlights and live video broadcast. When the Homestead girls golf team won its first state title in program history, we were there. When Fort Wayne brought back 3 state titles in cross country, we were there. We believe in sharing positive stories and setting the standard for how high school sports should be covered. Join us and donate today.
In 1952, my father, Jim Kelly, opened his first dealership. Thanks to loyal customers, dedicated employees, community support, and a bit of luck, his business grew. 70 years later, that dealership has become the Kelly Automotive Group, with 14 brands in 3 locations, including our new Fort Wayne Auto Mall. Thank you for 70 amazing years. It's been the ride of a lifetime. We hope you join us for the next 70.